Hello, everyone. Welcome to another
Hi,
episode of
guys.
Starjump Station. I know it feels like we've been talking already because of the sound checks. I'm Grim. I got with me Starlet and Ender, as always. How are you two doing?
Very well.
Wonderful.
Feels like it's been a while because we had IAE going on, so our episode schedule got kind of messed up, and it was the holidays. So I'm typically pretty unavailable during the holidays, but so it feels like it's been a while since we've talked, but we've actually talked just recently.
We have.
Yeah. Ender? What have you
Yeah.
been up to? Tell us about yourself. What have you been up to this last? How was your
been-
holidays?
It was good. Spent time with the family. We had a non-traditional Thanksgiving dinner, which was amazing. Raising money for Movember, as I think most people here know. If you guys want to get in on doing that, I am doing and I'll talk a little bit more about it and give links to everything a little later. But we are doing an Odyssey giveaway. I'll give everybody the links to that at the end of the show. I did start a couple of new Twitters. Grim, we have yours, obviously, which is here. So everybody go there. Follow
right
Starjump.org.
down
You'll
there.
see everybody's kind of all of our tweets. We all use it a little bit, but I decided I wanted to kind of throw some of my stuff when I'm randomly streaming over here, and Grim's and I will probably retweet it every once in a while. But so I've got my Twitter there, and then I created a Guardians Twitter for our fundraising stuff, which we'll have announcements for any fundraising items that we're doing and charity events that we're doing. So, yeah.
Cool.
And Starlet, do you have a Twitter?
Kind of not.
Kind of not.
She doesn't need one. She's so popular.
I should rescue it.
She's so popular in the community. She actually doesn't. Having one would probably hurt more than help at this point.
No one needs to know my thoughts, but I'm here anyway.
Starlet, how have you been the last week or so?
Good.
What have you been up to?
Good. Relieved, recovering from limited chip sale madness and CCU madness, and that stuff drags on a bit. So
yeah, a pretty crazy IAE overall, and there's a couple reasons behind that I think, and we'll definitely get to that here as we start talking about IAE. Just so everyone knows, this episode, so if you're new to Starjump Station, you definitely go on our YouTube channel, Starjump YouTube channel. We have all the Starjump stations that we've done so far on there, so you can watch those, on demand. And we kind of have two types of episodes here. We have some episodes that I really call our deep dive or our researched episodes, which we've done really one of those so far, which is the Endeavor episode. Where we really built out a lot of visuals, a lot of information, a lot of talking points. We had a framework to the show. And then we have episodes like the ones tonight, which are a little bit more freeform. Hey, Bourbon, thank you for the subscribe. And everyone, thank you for the follows. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. But we have episodes like this that, we have episodes like this that are a little bit more freeform, where we try very hard to do a good show, but we're okay with mistakes happening and just letting the conversation kind of find its own path. So, those are kind of the two types of shows we do. So this is going to be a little bit more of a free form episode. We do have a topic. We're going to be recapping IAE. We did an episode, what was it, a week and a half ago or so, that was kind of an episode during at the start of IAE, and we talked about how we would do a recap episode. That's what this is. So, first and foremost, though, let's get a few small things out of the way. There was a roadmap update. I do like to generally cover these because sometimes they affect things we talk about on the show. This episode will talk a lot about ships again because, let's be honest, that's generally what IAE is all about. And, the roadmap generally has gameplay and ships news, that stuff's kind of moving around. I think the big one that was talked about on the roadmap roundup, if I remember correctly. I think the big one was that all the ships that had been worked on for IAE were revealed in the roadmap. And there's a point about that I'm going to bring up when we get to our next topic, something I'm a little frustrated with. And the other big thing was that ship-to-ship refueling has been pushed back from 316 to 317. So those of you with your Starfarers and your excitement to do, some refueling, just have to wait another patch cycle. Again, not a big deal. I know some people. I saw a bunch of creators making videos about, oh no, it slipped, refueling's not, it's not, when it slips one patch, it's not a big deal. And especially if it's to tighten it up and make it a more enjoyable experience, I think that's always good. I would prefer things come into the game now a little bit more polished than everything being kind of a rough test. That was it pretty much from the roadmap roundup. Ender Starlet, did you have anything from the roundup you wanted to cover? I don't think there's. Oh, the other thing. Sorry, there was one more thing. Jumptown 2.0 was added to the 316 column. It is a dynamic event in the PU, just inspired by the original Jumptown, which was kind of an emergent event. But this new event will feature both lawful and unlawful mission paths. I'm kind of personally excited about this one because I think it's going to be a really interesting test bed for the Redeemer. I think for the Ares too, but the Redeemer specifically, I think is going to have an interesting role to play in this, and possibly even vehicles like the Spartan and stuff. I don't know, or and the Nova tank. A lot of these ships we've gotten recently, I think, are going to have a very interesting role to play in Jumptown 2.0. So it's going to be interesting.
We've all built up the story of Jumptown so much. They've got quite a high bar to try and achieve. It'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off and make it fun and interesting.
And generally, sorry, Ender, I didn't mean to cut you off. What'd you say?
No, it's okay. I feel like they added Jumptown 2.0, honestly, because of the stuff they pulled off as almost we're sorry we had to pull it off. Here's something fun to kind of,
because it's always referenced. Maybe. Yeah. I think that obviously the one thing that's a little concerning is that generally in games when an emergent event occurs naturally and it's attempted to be recreated, it usually fails. We've seen it before in games like World of Warcraft and many others. I always remember in World of Warcraft, I think it was like was it? I forget what it was. Something Shores had a PvP emergent thing happening.
Dark Shore.
Dark Shore. So the one thing I think that the Jumptown 2.0 will have going for it is there's not like tons and tons of gameplay loops in the game right now, so people are very starved for that content. So I think Jumptown 2 will attract the people it needs to attract and be a successful event.
By the way, real quick,
I hope so, yeah.
Just so everybody, to remind everybody, if you are not in our Discord, join our Discord, and you can go into the backstage if you guys want to join in any of the conversation.
Which you probably need to scroll all the way down in the Discord, right, Ender?
Okay. It's down at the very bottom. You'll see it.
Yep. Cool. Starlet, Ender, any other things for the roadmap roundup or jump point or any of that stuff?
It's just the roadmap where they took the cargo refactor off. Is it 3.18 now? I'm really looking forward to that one.
So it was the one before that, and they delayed the Hull C from 316 or 317. They delayed it to 318. I actually prefer this, and that's just, I'm saying that as someone who's really waiting for heavy cargo running. I say this because I always thought it was going to be weird that they were introducing physicalized cargo with the cargo refactor, manually loading your ships, but also weren't going to have persistent hangars in yet. I always thought that was weird because persistent hangars were going to be the patch after. But now moving the cargo refactor to 318 means that in 317 we're getting our own persistent hangars, which is going to be cool for even just RP purposes, honestly. But we're getting our persistent hangars finally, and then so we can all get kind of used to that, work out the bugs, and then the very next patch, 318, we'll get the cargo refactor so that we can actually use our persistent hangars to do that cargo loading. If I'm understanding it correctly.
What does hanger actually mean in the scope of this change?
Well, so essentially, and chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the persistent hangars, it's going to be much like a persistent hab. You're going to have a local cargo grid there. You're also going to be able to access cargo from, I think, a freight elevator. You're going to have your trolleys in there. You can use your tractor beams. Your ships can sit in there without being despawned or taking up a landing pad. The only thing is that the persistent hangar isn't in a persistent place in the landing zone. So, for example, your persistent hangar, when you arrive there, may be hangar 14, but by the time you spend 2 hours in it loading up a ship and you leave, you're actually like hangar 9 now, because underneath the surface, all those persistent hangars are moving around. I originally was hoping it would be cool if there were persistent, like, player ownable hangars, but it would be completely undoable. You know what I mean? Just from a
too many players.
too many players. Yeah, it would be a
not
bottleneck.
enough space.
So,
Yeah.
But the only thing they haven't talked about yet, I'm sure they will once we get closer to it, is that they haven't really talked about inviting party members, getting party members to fly to your hangar, or do they need to just land at the landing zone and then go to your hangar? But then how do they get to your hangar? Like, that's something I want to know, because I hope we can do that, because if you have a big ship like a Caterpillar and you have a lot of cargo to load, I may want a couple people with their tractor beam tools.
Well, it'll be on the elevator, right? You'll have the elevator panel and you'll have a special item that only you can see. And if you're in a party, probably other members in the party can see each other's elevator item, I guess.
I'm hoping that's how it works, yeah. Real quick, if you have a question and you don't want to jump in the backstage channel, feel free to throw a question in bracket, and we'll try to address it. I see Joran just joined. Hope you're well, Joran. Salute to you.
Joran.
I think we got a couple
shout
people.
Out to the Yacht Club.
Yeah, shout out to the Yacht Club. Always big supporters of Starjump. We greatly appreciate it, as always. We got someone in backstage already. I don't know if it's a topic related to what we're talking about, but we can bring them over in just a moment.
Bourbon, by the way, if you want to rejoin, you are more than welcome. Elsie, I'm going to pull you in to join us.
Sure.
Hi, Elsie.
Elsie, you may be muted.
You are muted.
Oh, no.
It's not server muted.
Our first backstage participant, and I'm muted.
It's okay.
Elsie, when you're ready, you
Switch
can unmute.
Oh,
they're back. They're back. Welcome back. Hi, Elsie.
We still have no Elsie.
Am I muted?
Oh, no.
No, you're good now.
You're
good. It was lag. It was lag.
Elsie, what you want to talk about?
Oh, I was just wait. What? Am I good now?
You're good.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking how. Well, no, I was just going to say about the hangars. How cool it was to be able to have the old style.
Well, would be really cool.
Yeah. And what was the old style? Was the old style supposed to be the persistent, like everyone has an assigned hangar and they're out there?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. Because I thought I had heard about that originally, like in the early days of like my Star Citizen interest. I remember thinking, man, that's really cool, but I didn't know, again, if it was fathomable. Yeah, I agree. I think it is something interesting and cool. Again, just the technical limitations behind it. I thought I remember at one time reading that, like, if you got a landing zone, or a hangar, or even a hab that was like in a downtown part of a landing zone, that it would be more expensive than if you were like way on the outskirts. So again, I don't know if all that's gone by the wayside or not. But
yeah,
I'm going to bring Bingo in.
Like
and then,
landing zones on the planet would be able to hold a lot of hangars, right? And you could just, for instance, Hurston, you could just expand out Lorville a long way with just more and more hangars. Maybe, the closer they are to the spaceport, the more expensive they are to rent or something, or buy or lease or whatever, however it works.
Yeah,
that'd be quite cool. But that's a lot of work, and definitely wouldn't be happening anytime soon.
Yeah,
which is a shame.
I'm going to pull Bingo in here.
Cool. We got a couple people wanting to do some show interactions. Bingo, one of our longtime Starjump community members. How you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, fellows? Starlet,
hey,
how
Bingo.
Are you?
Good.
Doing well.
Nice to see you.
Awesome.
What's on your mind?
I'm not too excited for the new cargo.
No, tell us why.
At all. It's going to be a pain in the ass.
Piracy.
Well, that
Yeah.
I mean,
There'll be
it's just
pirates out everywhere.
No, it's not that. It's just I don't want to load my max by hand
Yeah.
and take an hour.
I don't think we
Well,
will have to, though. To
Do
be
you
honest,
think there'll be the option to do it in an automatic way? There'll be a countdown timer now. Is that what you're thinking, Starlet?
I'm hoping. Yeah.
I think you just load with a countdown timer. Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be automatic.
Yep.
But for people who want to pirate your ship, they'll be able to take the cargo off and put it on their cutlass or their insert Drake ship here.
Yeah.
And it'll work for them. So
VMXEO also brings up a point. He says, I wonder what they're going to do with the various hangars that came with ship packages. I almost wonder if your persistent hangar can be chosen.
well, those hangars were for the hangar module, which still exists, although it's not updated. That may not actually be related in any way or shape to the hangars in game in the PU.
Yeah.
Bingo, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thanks, Bingo. It's a good point. I mean, I think that Bingo does bring up a great point in that there are going to be people. I think much like the gameplay, the medical gameplay and the looting and all that, there's going to be a subset of players that are not cool with this like manual cargo thing. What I would say is I would, as someone who is looking forward to that, because I do love the logistical stuff, I prefer there to be two options here. One is like you could manually load it yourself as fast as you can go, or two, much like when you go to a refining console, I'd like there to be a console in the hangar. You can go, I need to load XYZ amount of cargo into the ship, and then it just gives you a timer. Maybe it says 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, and, quote unquote, invisible AI are loading your ship. I'd be fine with that to balance it.
Same.
Yeah,
we're going to bring Bourbon in. I think he's our last comment or question.
Let's bring Bourbon, and we'll move on after this. Hey, Bourbon, how are you?
How are we all?
Doing well.
How you doing?
What's on your mind?
I had two thoughts. One of them was the original, and the second one came up during that last little point you made. The original one about the hangars, and you spoke a little bit about the physical moving hangars around. You go from 14 to 9 or whatever it was the example you made.
Yeah.
I feel like Elite Dangerous kind of addressed that. When you land in these stations, you would be pulled down and you'd slide along a rail and you end up in wherever it was and you did your modifications. I think with the idea, especially for city landing areas anyway, not necessarily maybe for stations, that might be a bit difficult to do. They definitely could, in a way, make it physical so you could do, in a way, tiered, because they do it in real life with cars, just going deeper and deeper around. I mean, Japan had a nice, interesting revolving garage idea that they've adopted.
And didn't Elite, remind me on Elite, I've played it, but it's been years ago. Didn't Elite, you land at you're landing at a hangar, but then you get pulled underground, right, and sent off?
Yeah, so you flew into the station, you do your landing on the pad, and then it would go down, and then you go along a rail into the screen where you did the whatever it was you needed to do.
Right. Yeah.
And it would be interesting to see that as an option, just a little bit more bare bones, not so much the big hangar you see now, but you go in there and it's a smaller platform based on the ship you have, and then you just drag down and
that would be
that way.
That would be great. I also, now that you say that, I would love for them to actually offer a little bit of options when coming into an LZ. Like, I would love for them to, like, if you're in a large ship, I would love for you to be able to either request a large like whatever your ship size is, but then maybe have the option to request the next size up to. It'd be like if you just want extra room to load cargo and other things, but.
Also, just to add on to that, whilst it came to my mind, is you could also, if you wanted to do that, have the side option to spawn possibly ground vehicles there in certain places, like Area 18, for example. On our core, it's very difficult. There's a lot of locked areas where you can't spawn ground vehicles if you set yourself. CIG have come forward and said, "Oh, no, you can't spawn there if you have ground vehicles. Good luck with that. You have to go somewhere else."
And you mean spawn the ground vehicles specifically to load them into a ship?
No, even just in the hangar, and just have a separate garage door in the hangar, because the garage doors don't take up a lot of space. I'm just thinking Hurston, Lawville in my head at the moment is the primary example. You could definitely go in there. There's definitely a lot of side room. Just to stick a garage door, there's plenty of verticality to allow that.
Yeah.
And the final point I had, the final thought, has entirely slipped my mind, so I'll let that one go.
Cool. Well, those are great points. We appreciate it. We're going to
Very
go
good
ahead and move
points.
on. Thanks for
All right. Thank you very much.
jumping in.
Appreciate you, Bourbon.
Let's go ahead and move on real quick. Persistent hangers. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot more about that when we get closer to the cargo refactor and the persistent hanger release. I think 317, 318, which we'll be looking at there. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was, and if you're in, by the way, if you jump into the backstage channel and we're having to move on from a topic, if what you have to say still qualifies, stay in there. We will get to you. It may just take a minute. Just be patient, please. Obviously, we got to keep the show moving to some degree, and this is our first time doing the kind of little backstage area, so just bear with us on that.
Growing pains.
Yeah, but I did want to grow to go into the growing pains that you messed me up in there. I did want to go into the all ships Q&A that was done today. I originally hadn't planned on us covering this, but I thought there's maybe a few things we could talk about. First off, without going into any specific things that were brought up, just overall, on the information that was given out, Starlet Ender, did you have any just like high level stuff that was reacting to that? Anything that was like completely shocking to you or revealing?
Yeah, there was one surprise for me,
Okay.
and it's something that people have been asking for a little while now.
Yeah. What is that?
It was the med bed. I was a little surprised to see that they were going to put a med bed in the 600.
Yeah. That obviously, I think from the ship Q&A, like in total, that I think the 600i news was probably the most
groundbreaking,
specific, and like informative. You know what I mean? Even though it's in still very early stages, and they seem to reiterate that it's not an act like full on. It's not on the vehicle like teams yet to build. It's just being concepted. So it could still be a ways out. I mean, we don't really know. But Starlet, I know you are a 600i owner. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we've all expected that the internals will be reworked. I mean, it really needs it desperately. It's just horrible.
So it sounds like pretty extensive rework, though, right?
That it needs it. It really does.
Yep.
The yoga room's got to go. I mean, the elevators. It needs ladders. The elevators are so slow. It's just it doesn't make any sense. The internals, but I love how it looks externally. I love the sort of captain's quarters in the front. It's really neat. I hope they keep those kind of things in place. I'm sure they will. Yeah. And it's nice to get some confirmation that it actually is happening.
Yeah, and I was rather surprised to hear of the substantial changes and differences that they're going for between the two versions of the ship, the Explorer and the Touring variants, and specifically how even like the modular sections now have even been, those locations have been changed. They're towards the rear of the ship now. I know Joran and chat probably has some opinions on the 600i especially, but it really sounds like, I even saw in some like community chat channels and stuff even today where people are like, oh man, the 600i is like the new ship I'm excited for. So
wow.
When they do these major reworks like this, it's kind of interesting because it's a little bit of a new ship, you know what I mean? And it's almost like getting a new ship announced. So
and it's great. It needs a bit of differentiation from the constellations, so
yeah,
that's kind of nice.
Andrew, we had a question, right?
We did. Let me. I didn't get the name, and that's dumb of me. So let me grab that real quick. Surrec Gaming asks, although there are differences among component sizes, would you agree that the 600i is within the same category as the Carrack and Odyssey?
Well, yeah.
I have my thoughts on that, but I'd like to hear you guys.
So
too.
I've been thinking a lot about this. I've brought it up in several discussions with other content creators and stuff lately. In that, and I'm totally wildly speculating here, by the way, and I'm sure there's lots of people that disagree with me, but I really have. I feel like I've seen a little bit of a weird drift with some of the new ships coming out and how they're classified. So, for example, I think the Odyssey is considered it really is interesting because it's not technically it is technically a large ship, I guess, but it's also kind of a capital ship, and it's riding that line so carefully. It actually has some capital components. It's large enough to get a station docking collar. It's bigger than the Carrack. It's 140 meters, I believe, and there's another ship that came out that was announced like that, the Liberator. The 600i is a much smaller ship. What's the length of the 600i? Does anyone know? And not that length matters, but the 600i, not only does it look smaller and is smaller, but it looks like a lighter ship from a mass standpoint than something like the Odyssey that's carrying refinery gear, has a pretty sizable hangar for another fighter and stuff. They really feel like ships in a different class. But that's my opinion. There's been this kind of interesting drift at CIG where some large ships are coming out where they're like quasi capitals and stuff. Starlet, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, the 600 is a lot smaller than the Capital. It's a large ship, 92 meters. John
92
says.
meters. Okay.
Yeah, but hopefully it's the Carrack has got a crazy top speed. I have no idea why it has that top speed. But it's heavily armored, right? So when armor comes in, there might be quite a big differentiator there.
Yep.
Also, we don't know about jump point mapping, which is possibly not exploration now. It's possibly science. I don't know. But can the 600 do that? Probably not. I don't know.
Yeah.
And what happened to long distance probes? Are they a thing on all the exploration
They're still on the
ships?
progress tracker, I believe.
But which ships do they work with?
Well,
All
we
of
know
them?
they're with the
All of them?
Carrack.
Right.
That's been
so there's so
confirmed.
many things that are unknown about these game loops that they just haven't been explained.
Yeah, and the Odyssey and Carrack situation is something we're going to talk about when we get to the Odyssey later in the show. But in terms to answer your question, Sorek, for me, the 600i is not in the same category as the Carrack and Odyssey. I think, and that's okay. I think there can be a lot of gray area in between these ship classes, but I think there's a 600, and then I think from the 600 you graduate to the Carrack and then to the Odyssey. That's my personal opinion.
Remember, you can fly the 600 solo a bit better than you can fly Carrack solo, for instance.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For me personally, it's 3 different ships, 3 different categories.
Yep.
And again, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, until we know about blading, to follow up on my last comment.
Yeah.
So many unknowns. Yeah.
It is a lot of unknowns. What we do know so far, there are 3 different ships. You've got a luxury exploration ship in the 600. You've got a mapping ship with the Carrack, a jump point mapping ship.
Heavily armored former military ship. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you've got a kind of an all-around long-range explorer with the Odyssey. It really seems like it is going to be I am going out with my group, with my crew, and we are going long way out there.
Yeah.
And we're maybe looking for different mining areas, and we're going to scan these areas, and we're going to sell the data that we get to other people. So it's 3 different ships, so I really can't categorize them other than they are all explorers.
And just to sum up, I feel like they're not in the same category. They are all there's some degrees of separation between them.
Yep.
There's some overlap too, though. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Starlet, last point.
Any ship can roam, so any ship can just move around and look for stuff. So we just need to know more about the different game loops and how they interact with each ship.
So I'm going to plug through the rest of the Q&A, just hitting some highlights. Before I do that, does Bourbon have another point he wants to bring up, Ender? Because we have a lot to talk about on the Odyssey, and we do have some Odyssey visuals we're going to show off here later in the show, by the way, if you're a fan of those.
Hi, Bourbon.
Hello.
Hi, Bourbon.
Bourbon, another point about the 600i?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the gold standard pass, because they're doing the rework of the internals for the 600i, and I'm wondering why they're doing this separate from just doing a full gold standard pass with it to get it all done out the way now. It seems kind of a bit of a waste of the time to start working on this, but not make it a full process of just finishing it all off.
I would have to assume this is going to include the gold pass on the ship with so much of our internal rework going on. They even had talked about expanding things like the cargo elevator and stuff like that. I have to imagine they're adding in, all the panel buttons, the light switches, all that stuff. So, and also from the ship Q&A, we kind of learned that the gold standard pass is a little more informal than it sounds. It sounds like the end all be all to a ship, but it obviously, they talked a lot about that, where it's like, there's a gold standard pass, but there could be the platinum standard. They could keep going and iterating these. So that's my thought on this bourbon.
Yeah,
that it probably is the same.
It's interesting they haven't specified whether it is or isn't a gold standard. I saw a few questions pop up about that in a few of their videos and things like that, and it's interesting they haven't quite touched on it, how they're doing this silver pass at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's curious how gold standard is an evolving thing. So yesterday's gold standard is not tomorrow's, and I'm sure the Gladius, for instance, will go through more gold standard passes one day when all the systems are further down the line.
Yeah.
We trademark Star Citizen vague terms being thrown around.
yeah, totally.
All right. Well,
thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Bourbon.
Thanks, Bourbon.
All right, I'm going to run through some of the highlights. I know we have a lot. We're probably going to deep dive a little bit here, the whole Carrick and Odyssey discussion, which is coming up. I got some cool visuals to go along with that. But let's go ahead and hit some of the highlights of the Q&A. They did talk. One thing I thought they were interesting to talk about was they're sort of talking about ship production times, and they very rarely talk about this, honestly, because I do follow it, and those of you who know me know I follow John Crew quite a bit in terms of the things he says, and any sources and show he's on, I make sure to watch it. It was interesting to hear him talk about how something simple like a ground vehicle has about a 3 to 4 month production time, and a cap ship could have somewhere around 2 years of dev time, which is interesting. And that got me to think a little bit about the Banu Merchantman and some of the other things they've been saying about the BMM lately, and that we might see it end of next year. If they fully focus on that thing, it could also be a 2023 ship. Very easily could be a 2023 ship. We'll see. But the fact that he said cap ships, 2 years of dev time, it'll be interesting to see where that comes out. They talked about the 600i. They did talk about the Prospector and Mole cargo bags are still intended to be removed and compressible. They talked about how the Starfarer is progressing, and it's kind of rebuild to have refueling capability. They are going to do the internals. That is going to be a separate pass in the future. They're in those very early exploration kind of phases of that. They did talk a little bit about Gold Standard in that it brings out features that are up to date at that date. So things like light switches, light panels, and stuff like that. But John Crew made sure to say that one of the primary things behind Gold Standard was component access. While we don't hear much about when physicalized components are coming online, you can tell they're trying to truck through these ships and get the component access. I still think we're a ways away from components, actually, because at the rate they're moving through Gold Standard, it's going to be a while before these ships all have their physicalized components. They talked about when the new Vanduul ships will be pushed out to players, because as we all know, the Vanduul ships were redesigned for Squadron 42, and they look absolutely amazing. Players in the PU will get those when Squadron 42 comes out, so you got a little bit of a wait for those, unfortunately. They did talk about that they're looking into ways of increasing ammo capacity for ballistic ammunitions. They talked about the Argo Raft having 3 containers because it was kind of nice, quick, easy to load and unload. They did talk about how they had done some prototype iterating with like larger cargo boxes or more cargo boxes, and this just felt right to them. They did a quick modularity update, and again, sorry, I'm looking off screen here, I'm reading. They did a quick modularity update, said it's still very much planned. Oh, this is player-facing modularity, right? So that we can go to a Cousin Crows and switch out of this for that. They aren't forgetting it. They said there is a core tech blocker. The core tech blocker was related to the item port system and how it works with OCS, the object container streaming, and essentially because OCS likes to consider that stuff static and all this. It got a little complicated there, but essentially there's a core tech blocker, but they haven't forgotten it. They're working. I'm sure that core tech blocker will be fixed at some point. They did say though that would most likely be worked on by the team that's currently doing server meshing, and they're very focused on server meshing right now, and I agree they should be. So modularity, we still could be a couple years away from that even being worked on. Talked about physicalized damage. They said it is being worked on by the physics team at the moment. They're currently prototyping, doing soft body deformation tests and stuff like that. They're doing some tests where they're replacing the hit point based damage to a more of a material tensile strength based system, which is really cool. So if your ship is like made out of some ultra futuristic carbon metal fiber, whatever, that might be tougher than the ship that's just made out of the regular metal. So that's kind of interesting. They've really got a bunch of stuff they've successfully prototyped. They're looking at how to bring all that together now. AI blades. They're currently tied in with avionics and computers. They're part of the vehicle experience team. They need to essentially, they have the blades. They've already mapped out a lot of the blades too. There actually is a list for those. I've read them before. There's some really interesting blades that they have planned in there. What they still need to make, or the vehicle experience team needs to make, is the computer that holds the blades. That is not a physical thing yet. The actual computer that sits in your ship. So right now we know certain ships have a certain amount of computers in them. Well, those computers are just like set decoration right now. They don't exist as a thing in there yet. They did bring up the hex codes, the paint editor. They said, and I thought they addressed it in a great way, said it's still planned. The idea is that you fly to a Cousin Crows or something to do this. They want to be able to let players choose the colors, but they may retain some exclusivities with certain liveries and stuff, and that may be based off patterns or tile or stencils and stuff like that. Essentially, the more custom a paint job, probably the more limited it will be for you to design something close to that just using like a hex code or RGB value system. And the biggest part of that I thought was interesting is they said that they do eventually want to do interior customization. John Cruz said that. So I thought that was really cool. That got me kind of excited. They said that racing is not dead. That's still being planned. They talked a little bit about operator modes. I wish they would have went into that more, but they really kind of didn't go in deep on that. They talked about operator modes for EMP and QED, operator modes for salvage, stuff like that, but they really didn't go. I want to know more about that, specifically like bridge gameplay and how we can get that, a lot of the stuff that happens on the bridge of a ship separated out for people. They brought up the Carrack armored cockpit. Funny enough, they talked about it this week, actually. They're fairly confident they can do it now. They've solved the technical hurdles that were there, so they just need to pull it together. The cool thing there is that the fact that they're talking about it, I would imagine they would not do that, though, until they did a Carrack Gold Standard Pass, personally, even though they have all the stuff in place for it. They did talk a little bit about separate wing animations from landing mode, which I thought was really cool. Me and Ender have talked long and hard about that, especially in relation to the arrow. They say they can do it now. That is something they've crossed their technical hurdles with, and they're going to try it out on a ship that's currently in production, which I thought was rather interesting.
In production.
Yeah, a ship we don't know about. So they did talk a little bit about ship-to-ship or ship-in-ship spawning. They said it will be from the ASOP terminal, and it's handled by the USPU team. They talked about the Mercury missing its secondary ingress point. They just said no progress is being made on it, and I don't think there will be any progress being made on it for quite some time. Mercury Platinum Pass, probably. They did ask about the Polaris. And they reiterated that it has had its full interior concept work done. We already knew that because they told us that last Invictus, I believe. So the Polaris has had a full rework, which is really exciting. They said there's been changes to the loadout, which really got me excited because we all know the key selling point behind the Polaris, the number one thing that people focus in on that ship overall. I mean, there's a lot of things, but this is the number one thing, is that it carries size 10 torpedoes and it carries 24 of them. And you can fire 4 simultaneously. So changes to its loadout are rather interesting. And I'd love to hear what those plans are. They
Away
also,
from my javelins.
yeah, they use the word significant changes. They said that everything is in place for the ship to move into production, but they don't know when it's moving into production. So that's unfortunate. They do say the hangar is to metric now and can fit a lot more ships. Think Odyssey hangar. That's the type of hangar the Polaris is most likely going to have in terms of sizes and metrics. And it has grown a little bigger. John Crew said previously it's still sub 200 meters. Could be anywhere between 175, 180, 190 meters. The biggest thing, though, that stood out for me was that it has gotten upgraded on its components now. So now it uses a Capital class shield generator power plant. We all knew it had the Capital radar, and I think it has Capital coolers now. So pretty big update in the components section. Last 2 things, the Merchantman has moved from concept into full production white boxing. So any of you Merchantman owners out there, your ship has moved into actual production. Same thing with my long-awaited ship that will be my day-to-day ship, my daily flyer. The Drake Corsair, Woot Woot Drake, has moved officially into white boxing. It is in active development. If I had to guess, you can expect to see the Drake Corsair added to the roadmap soon, probably for the release view. I would think it's going in for 318 or probably 318 or 319, something around there. I think the Drake Corsair. That was it. That was it for the ship Q&A.
Can we expect you to take a week off of work for the Corsair?
Yes.
All right, that's accurate.
I also will not
Bourbon
take any bad talk about the Drake best manufacturer.
Is there any news on those side turrets that don't seem to make any sense?
No. I think they're going to stay. I can't imagine they would move them. I think it's going to be a lot like, I'm trying to think of something equivalent. To me, it's a lot like the Mercury's turret. It's there. Should you be relying on that? And I don't know. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. I think where the Corsair, though, is going to be very deadly is you do not want to be in front of that ship, dead to rights, because that thing has got a ton of pilot. It's like the 600i in that it's got a ton of pilot-controlled weaponry.
Yeah.
You want to bring Bourbon in before we move?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead,
and
Star.
I'm glad they're looking at the Polaris's loadout, because it really was undergunned.
Yeah.
Before it only was torpedoes. The rest of the weapons were pretty inadequate.
Well,
So
I can tell you what I hope with that, not to interrupt you, Starlight, but what I hope it gets what they showed us with the Merchantman and those point defense cannons all over it. That's what I hope it gets.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring Bourbon in, and I'm going to just have him ask the question that he
Okay.
asked if he remembers it, and if he didn't, I'll...
It really is, John. Everything is getting
Hi,
upgunned.
Bourbon. Yeah, Gervin, it
Hello.
is.
Hello again.
Do you remember the question you asked about 5 to 7 minutes ago?
I probably fell asleep since then, so no.
Thanks, Bourbon. No, I'm kidding. So you asked for the long dev time on the caps. Do you think of this as because those ships are more likely to be part of Squadron 42, or because they might not be?
Yes, I was just wondering. That was the original question from before, because you mentioned it was a 2-year period to get the caps in. I was wondering if you think that's just because because they're Squadron 42 likely ships to be featured, being interiors, being around them more often, that means they're going to spend way more time getting closer to gold standard, or because they're not, which means they won't put as much time towards them. They'll just kind of trundle along with
the
them.
funny thing about that is I think the 2 years is the short turnaround time. That's going to be for ships, in my opinion, like the Kraken, the Orion, possibly the Hull E and Hull D. I think probably have 2-year full development cycle, or the Banu Merchantman, 1.5 year, 2-year development cycles. because the ships that primarily feature in Squadron 42, ships like the Idris, the Javelin, stuff, and those cap ships, they technically took way more than 2 years to develop. Now they've gone through several iterations, but I mean the Idris. I mean, I'm sure many people in chat can correct me, Starlight. You may be able to, but the Idris has technically been in development since what, like 2013 or 14. Technically, it has been changed a little bit. It grew from a Corvette into the frigate it is now. But I see the 2 year cap ship development time as what they think of like their new fast cap production build, timeline being. And that is saying something when you take a ship like let's take the Kraken for example. The Kraken I think will pull heavily from what they have of Drake, so that will help with development. But let's be honest, they'll be able to pull from the Caterpillar and stuff like that, but they don't have anything that comes close to the Drake in size. They're gonna have to still create a lot of stuff for the Drake Kraken. Same thing with RSI. I mean, the RSI Orion, it might borrow heavily from some of those bigger RSI ships like the Bengal and eventually the Polaris and Perseus. But it's also an industrial ship, not a military ship. So should it borrow heavily from those? I don't know. So yeah, I don't know. I think 2 years is what's going to be considered the fast turnaround time. And I think Squadron 42 ships, though, take much longer. Starla, what's your thoughts on that?
How long is the Corsair taken to build from scratch?
Well, and the Corsair is not a cap, but I mean it's
as comparison to a normal ship.
Well, it got its concepting pass. I think that took a couple months, and it's being worked on starting now, all the way till June. Or no, sorry, August. It goes to August because of the downstream teams. So from now to August, which is what? That's 8, 9, 10, with 2 months of. So if you include the concepting, the Corsair took about a year, or it's going to take about a year, and that's a ship
seems reasonable.
Yeah, and that's a ship that doesn't have a lot of unknowns about it, or technical hurdles. It's essentially another 400i or a Connie. It's got a little hangar for a ground vehicle. It's got some guns on it. You know what I mean? And a little mess hall. There's no big unknown there. So, yeah.
The point I wanted to come into backstage for to begin with, regarding not that question, was regarding the Perseus and the Polaris.
Yeah.
Just thinking about their actual loadouts after they were kind of redesigned lately. Because Starlet's comment of keep them away from my Javelin kind of just made me think for a second. Having those size 10s and a lot of them, and having the Perseus size 7s and having 4 of them, they kind of make the caps feel a little bit weak and almost not worth the time and investment in. If you can have these smaller ships with less crew, just get 1 or 2 of them and they can outdo them very
less
easily.
risk.
I think we'll see some changes to capital shields. I think that will go up a lot. I think the armor will make things a lot different. I don't think a Javelin should have to worry about 1 Polaris, but I think a Javelin should worry about 5 Polarises, for instance.
Yes, I agree. The Javelin should worry about, even from a Polaris, there needs to be a coordinated effort amongst quite a few players to endanger a Javelin. And that scales down based off whatever the ship is. So, for example, a Perseus should not be worrying about 2 or 3 Hornets attacking it, in my opinion. You know what I mean? 5, 6 Hornets attacking it. Maybe an Eclipse comes in, it's got a problem it needs to concern itself with. But a couple Hornets buzzing around it, its shield should be able to withstand that barrage alone.
It's like the Redeemer. There are 3 people required to get that thing moving, and people are comparing 3 people in a Redeemer to 1 person in a fighter, and feeling it's OP. Well, maybe compare it to 3 fighters with 3 people and see how you go.
And then consider his Divine Shadows comment he just put, where things aren't going to go just boom anymore either. There's going to be the ships are going to be disabled. That's going to be how we do it. Once they get that breakability stuff in. Cool.
I think a final thing that people forget about as well with these big ships is shield recharging isn't currently properly implemented. Shields are not actively recharging whilst they're being drained. They're just being drained. I think there was a point that was mentioned a while ago about the Idrises just kind of being a joke. There was a video put up by Citizen Kate about 16 snub fighters taking down an Idris. So
I don't think we should. I don't think we should take the current NBC capital ships as gospel for what capital ships will be like for players.
True.
And I don't think we should take the current shield rebalancing that took away regen as final either. I think they may bring that back to some degree.
Yeah. And they did say on a previous episode of something, the Calling All Devs or something, that one of the primary reasons they put the Idris and Xenothreat and all that is to start testing how capitals handle amongst players. So, cool. Thanks, Bourbon. We're going to start moving on here. A lot more to cover. I think we got one more in backstage.
See you again in 10 minutes.
Thank you, Bourbon.
See you, Bourbon.
And let's pull
bring
Joe
our.
in.
Yeah. Hey, Joran. How's it going?
Oh,
are you there?
Maybe
conversations.
We may have bored him, and he may have fell asleep.
He fell asleep.
It's possible.
Is this mic working?
There he is.
It is.
Hey,
sir.
Joran.
Too many mics and.
Thanks for stopping by and joining us tonight. What's on your mind?
Hey, good topics. It was an amazing SCL today. So much great information. Lots of excitement here the past couple of weeks with IAE, and of course the big discussion between the Carrack and the Odyssey. I think I agree strongly that it's not really ideal to try to cross compare ships that have similar roles that are really very, very different ships. And the whole Carrot Killer Odyssey, so many people are saying it's a better ship. It's different, it's bigger, but it's not necessarily better. It's just different.
I wonder if Paul Jones is regretting he said that.
I think he has a personal preference, and kind of like Jared does. Everybody has things that they like about different ships, and that's what's beautiful about having 200 different spaceships. That there's something for everybody, and a dozen different manufacturers.
I feel like it's a bit harsh of a thing for Carrack lovers to hear, right? That one of the top, concept artists and ship designers is building, a killer against your ship. It's a little bit harsh.
Here's what's funny though. In some ways, CIG has set up the different manufacturers. They're almost like sports teams where people love certain manufacturers over others, and you really grow to like that. Like, for example, there's many Drake ships I do not like, but I'm a Drake fan. I'm also quickly becoming a Crusader fan. You know what I mean? When you start to become like a fanboy or fangirl over those manufacturers. What I think is interesting though is, while a lot of people can get kind of hurt over those comments and suddenly feel like their real money investment, is being, nulled and voided. One interesting thing I think about, and the Carrack and Odyssey really highlight this issue, is that I think the coolest gameplay is going to come from players who can figure out what little advantage to pull from each ship and how to bring those two advantages together to work in concert to create the ultimate meta. Right now, sometimes we think of metas in terms of like a single ship, right? Like, the Hurricane is the best ship fighter out there right now. But I think once the idea of fleet gameplay and stuff really comes online, there's going to be metas behind what ships are working in concert to one another. You know what I mean? That to me has a lot of interest, and I could see the Carrack and Odyssey having a lot of like plus and minuses that complement each other and stuff.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think a lot of people have forgotten about the cartography room in the Carrack. I think the scanning, as y'all were saying earlier, long-range scanning is completely not understood by any of us, really. I think there's a lot of unknowns, and I honestly don't think that CIG really fully understands what they're going to do until they start to build that out. And I think we'll start to see some of that explored in Pyro when we have a bigger system and a new place to go. It's 5 times larger than the Stanton system. And I think the Carrack scanners are going to be more for large system surveying, and the Odyssey is more for going places and surveying not as long distance in its scanning capabilities. Plus, also, of course, the
Yep.
drone room.
And long distance probing, actually, I just looked it up because you brought that up. It is on the progress tracker for work in February of next year. So soon.
But
There it is.
that's exactly right, John. But that's exactly the reason why the comments about being a carrot killer make no sense to me, because those guys will know. I mean, perhaps CIG don't really know the differences between all the ships yet. Maybe that's the case, but I would have thought they would have a good idea about how they're going to differentiate them in the future. And if they do differentiate them, then it's not a carrot killer at all. So it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah, it depends on how you were judging a ship. I mean, it's certainly bigger. It's got bigger guns. It's got bigger components. It's got a larger bay for a full size fighter. Yeah, sure, it's bigger and more powerful, but it's also not going to be able to land in large hangars and pads. It's not going to be able to go some places that the Kara can because it's too big, and this whole scanning mechanic plus also the modularity of the cargo bays, that's a huge feature, and that was really the thing I was most excited about from today was their talk about future ship modularity, because that's something that hasn't been discussed in years, and is a major feature that was talked about early in the development, like with the Javelin. A lot of the rooms are supposed to be modular to give it a lot of different roles. And if we get more modularity from ships, as they were saying, they're not going to have to build as many super specialized ships because we're going to have more multi-role. And we haven't heard anything about that in a long time. And that was the most exciting. As excited as I am about the 600 news today, the ship modularity was the biggest thing for me. What did you guys think?
Does anyone want to go first on that? I'll
So
just
you.
I'll just say that it was very exciting to hear that. Obviously, well, it was very exciting to hear that, and I was glad they were. I actually like when they're very kind of blunt, even with the bad news. I like that that John Cruz said, "Look, that is probably the people working on server meshing because that's the team that also built the OCS code."
Yeah.
So I like that they kind of like said, "Yes, we're definitely doing that. We're not doing it right now because that team is busy on server meshing." And I actually like when they're open like that. You know what I mean? Where, yeah, it's probably not the news we were hoping. Probably hoping that modularity was fully coming on board, like in 3.18 or something. But I like when they kind of give us the the kind of rough version of it, of what the plan is. And so I think that it's good to hear modularity still on the docket, and it's like a lot of things got to be prioritized, and that really goes for a lot of the things they bring up. The paint systems, the God, there was one more. I can't remember what it was. They still plan on doing all that stuff. It's still something that's being planned. Hasn't gone anywhere. It's just all about priorities now. And some people can, I think, get a little disheartened by that because they can go, well, we've been waiting 4 years for it. So when is this ever going to come? When's this one feature I'm coming out? I'm excited about coming out. When's it going to come out? Is it going to be another 4 years? One thing that is nice is that we do know that CIG is growing. I mean, they're quickly becoming one of the largest game studios in the world. We know they just got some new space and stuff. And I think they're going to get to a point too, especially once Squadron 42 is out the door, where they're going to be able to tackle a lot of this stuff in short order. You know what I mean? Right now, I think they're trying to get those things like server meshing and, of course, on Squadron 42, get that out the door. So there's some big priorities right now that I think are still holding some stuff back. So, anything else before we move on, Jordan?
Those were the high points.
Awesome.
Good to see you guys.
Great to see you too.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks
for
joining.
joining. We always love the Yacht Club for supporting Starjump and all the stuff we do. So we really appreciate it, and you've been a big part of that support, Jordan, just from the very beginning, just really helping out with stuff. So I salute you, and glad you joined us tonight.
Part of the family. Take care, guys.
Cool.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so as you know, we're kind of on something right now. We're going to be moving into ships here in a moment. You're getting to see a little bit more, a little sneak peek of one of the visuals though I'd prepped, which is this is actually the Odyssey that will be in our Fleet Viewer project, which you've probably heard us talk about many times. I have to
What?
prep you all
No.
the ships from the Holo model, and as you can see, the Odyssey's turned out pretty great. I think it from working from the Holo model and doing some adjustments to it, it's really gotten to a place where it looks pretty cool. So, yeah, I know someone asked for a GIF. I will definitely get a GIF out of that probably tonight. So,
I can see
real
right
quick,
now we're going to need in the Fleet Viewer, we're going to need hanger open version versus hanger closed version.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Something like
yeah,
that.
I know
Super cool.
there was a lot of talk about how the hangar doors open, so I thought I would illustrate how that works. They are kind of a bifold thing where they fold out like that. All right. Let's go ahead and pop off that for a minute. We're going to kind of go into IAE real quick. Oops, sorry, this show open always wants to play now when I pop over to our full screen. I don't know why. But anyways, IAE, it was an interesting one this year, a pretty busy one for me, actually. But before I talk about my impressions, I'd love to hear, Ender, what was your impression of IAE this year? Any standout things, just not to deep dive them, but anything that really stuck out for you for IAE?
To be honest with you, it was this year was a little more exciting for me than I think last year was. Um, Maybe it was the ships, maybe it was more than the ships, but it was nice to see a more robust set of videos from Jax McCleary. I think maybe those were the most fun for IAE, and then I did all the contests, the screenshot contests, but going out to IAE and looking at the ships and the new armor and just kind of all of everything that they were doing really probed a lot of excitement for me for the future of the game and what we're going to see in the near future.
Yeah, I think it was a standout for a lot of people, the Jack stuff. Starlet, what about you? IAE, your favorite time of year? How was it? Real quick, Joran, I just sent you 2 files in Discord on a DM, so check those out. Sorry, Starlet, go ahead.
Javelins. I got the last javelins I wanted. I don't want any more javelins. More javelins.
Do you have enough javelins now that you could put them end to end and actually spell out your name, like build the letters, like Starlet?
That's what she got them for.
You'll see them from Hurston in like low orbit. You'll just yeah.
That's the plan.
That's good.
See, most of my hangar is just capital ships and CCUs, and I haven't built any ships. So, and I always get to the end of IAE after working quite hard to prepare with the right CCUs to protect the ones I have and add any ones that give some advantage.
Yeah.
But I always feel like at the end it's like, but I don't have anything, and there's no ships in my hangar, so I always end up building some. So I ended up building some Starfarer Geminis. So that's kind of fun.
Very cool. Real quick, AZ has a question. On the last 3 days of IAE for BIS, the downstairs lobby had new armor sets for best in show, weapons gallery, and medical stuff. Do you think the med bays on display is a sneak peek of one of their unannounced content feature for upgrading or changing your ship's med bay or adding it to one? I missed that, AZ. Did anyone else catch that? Were there big med beds down there?
There were med beds, med bays. They actually had quite a bit of medical stuff.
Man, I wish I would have caught that. I didn't even know they were there.
I kind of feel like it was less about unannounced content features or features, and more about they looked like beds that are currently in the game. And it was a display of what we're dealing with right
so
now.
Much like how they show weapons and some components, now they're showing med beds because it's a ship feature. Yeah, that's possible. Good point though, AZ. For me, IAE was a busy one for me because I wanted to get a bunch of ships into my buybacks. It's something I've always wanted to do. I've never tried to actively grab CCUs and buyback and stuff and melt them and keep them in buybacks. So I, attempted to do one of the hardest things in Star Citizen, which is try to buy a limited ship with store credit. And I quickly found out that that was not possible for me because I didn't have the right set up to respond that quickly to a purchase. So I broke down and bought an Idris with War Bond with real money, which I was able to snag. I melted that immediately as quickly as I could, the cooldown timer. And then I used that credit over the succeeding days to pick up any and all ships that I wanted that were sure to go up later significantly or were limited. And I have to say, I crossed every single one off the list. I was able to get them with that credit that I initially put in for the War Bond Idris. I was able to get everything from an Endeavor Master Kit to a Pioneer, Perseus, Orion. I got Apollo, Starliner, Raylan, Scorpius, Caterpillar, Vulture, Liberator, Odyssey. I really was able to clean up with that credit, get them all into buyback, store them, and then now that I have that credit, I can filter that into more short-term ships like the Vulture and stuff like that I can actually use. So that was kind of cool. That was the first time I had done that, and I really had to kind of like pay attention to make sure I had credit freed up for when a limited sale was going on. So I had to make sure I purchased ships on the right days at the right times and the right orders. So it went off without a hitch. So I ended up putting a ton of ships. I think almost 30 things went into my buyback off that just one initial lot of credit. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
That is badass.
I enjoyed it. It was actually kind of fun working it all out. And the limited ship sales, while they are stressful and they can be severely disappointing if you aren't able to snag one, they are kind of an exciting moment. And
really are, yeah. They really are.
It's like you're in a drawing for something and you're trying to win it. Is that the best way to do limited ships? I don't know. Maybe there's a better way because I know it disadvantages certain people that have low, or bad internet connectivities and stuff. I know when they originally did the Krakens in 2948, didn't they do some sort of essay writing contest? I don't know. But maybe there's a better way. But the limited ship waves, they are pretty exciting. And I want to go ahead and do a call out. Another thank you. This happens quite often on this show.
So
I'm gonna do another thank you to Starlet, who when the Pioneer second waves went on sale and I missed out, well, they actually just never clicked over. I had already went back to doing Thanksgiving stuff with family. I wasn't even around the computer, and I got a message from Starlet. God knows what time it was for her. Got a message from her saying they just activated them. Go, go, go. I ran into the other room and was able to snag it. And a thank you to Joran as well, who did the same exact thing for me, but for the privateer conversion kit that wasn't showing up. Joran helped me get that. Joran was holding down concierge chat on Spectrum pretty hardcore. So nice job on that, Joran.
It's funny that kind of thing has happened a few times in the past, and people give up so early. Just just keep trying, and get in the chats with your friends and your org mates and talk about what's happening, and keep trying and don't give up until the sale's really finished.
That and ultimately stay calm, carry on, because remember, none of these ships are going to be out in 6 months. If you miss this year, you got years to get these. You know what I mean?
Sales to come. Yeah.
There can be that feeling sometimes when you don't have something you want that you feel like you're missing out, but it's not released at all yet. You're still ahead of the game. You know what I mean? And there's going to be multiple chances to get this stuff. So everyone, don't worry if you missed out on a ship this IE. Especially if it's a big limited ship or something like a cap ship, you're going to be able. There's going to plenty more chances.
People get quite overwhelmed or discouraged about limited sales. But just talk to your friends and work out what's the most efficient way to go about it, and what's the best place to search for the ship appearing in the shop, and how do you manage a cart, and can you do anything with credit in the cart in advance, or it's not as bad as it appears.
Yeah. One thing I will say that I learned about this whole process of getting stuff, melting it, putting it in, I would love if any of you really have good ears, or the ears of really high up CIG people and have some form of influence, one thing I would really love is for us to have the ability to organize our hangars a little better. Our hangars on the website, I mean. You know what I mean? Everything right now is in like a linear
Yeah,
list, and
that's
sometimes
true.
the icons don't match things. I wish there was ways to organize that, filter it better, and just ways of visualizing that. Like maybe right now it's all on the list. Maybe there's ways of like like you can look at things in ascending and descending order, but maybe filters like that allow us to view our hangars a little better.
You see, Grim, you've just gone from a very small hangar to a
I
rather
know.
larger hangar,
I
and you haven't realised that we actually have something for that already called
Do we?
Hanger Link, which
Oh,
is
yes,
exactly
that's
that.
right.
Yeah,
That's
And,
right.
and there's another one called CCU Game, which
That's
also does a
true.
great job
That's true.
and has really sophisticated store support. The community has risen. We have risen to your
Yes,
cause here
to
and sorted it
take
for you.
over.
So
Yes, to take over.
maybe give
That's
it a
true.
go. Maybe I don't know.
I've also heard that at some point there's going to be something called Fleet View added to Hanger Link. Is that accurate, Starlet?
That is accurate.
That's
We'll
still
be trying
accurate.
to do a big push in January on that. So hopefully late January or February we'll have our first release of a brand new Fleet Viewer product,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
well, not
If-
product, it'll be free, but
Yeah.
a service that you can use to render images of your fleets.
If you are curious about Fleet Viewer project we're working on and want to know more about it and even see some examples of it, we have an episode of Starjump Station on our YouTube channel. I think it was. I'll get that particular video, but it'll allow you to see what the Fleet Viewer looks like, how it's essentially going to work, and essentially will give you an update. I think it was on our Hanger Link in 315 episode. So let me
Yes.
grab a share link of that right now. I'm going to go ahead and just
Oh, I
post
just
it. Oh, did you, Ender?
yeah,
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Ender's on top of it. He's very
I'll do what I
fast.
can.
Huge.
Would you like a direct link to that? Because I've got the direct link.
Sure,
as
if you
well.
could, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah,
We have some new
absolutely.
people in here, and everyone. If you followed and I have missed that, I sincerely sorry. Thank you for all the follows. We really appreciate it. Starjump Station and Starjump in general is we are kind of a new community with Star Citizen, and we are trying to build. We have a lot of things in production. Those of you that don't know where we came from, we really started off back when I did the Aegis and the Drake cinematics. We're still doing those. I'm working on RSI cinematic next. You can see those on our YouTube channel as well. We also are working on the Fleet Viewer and Hanger Link thing. We are working on Starjump Chronicles, which is going to be our Machinima series, which we're about to kick back into high gear now that me and Ender are on the same schedule. And we have Starjump Station, obviously. We have our Discord community. We fly together. We stream together. We are also we have Starjump Guardians, which is our charity endeavor. Our charity project, which Ender will talk about a little bit at the end of the show, right, Ender? Sorry,
Yep.
So we'll talk about that. So we have a lot of stuff going on, and we're constantly thinking up new ideas. Ender has a new show he is currently working on. We may not want to give too much information about it yet until we have certain things locked down, but it's going to be really, really exciting. I think you'll enjoy it. But that's something Ender's been working on in the background too.
I'm really excited about it. I think the premise is something that people will be interested in seeing and hearing.
Carl said I said an endeavor. Everyone take a drink, even though we don't have a yacht club type setup. I'm going to take a drink. All right. Let's go ahead and get into some of the IAE. So there's one main thing I wanted to talk about with IAE, and that was it's not really IAE. It's specifically 315, the 315 patch cycle, but it kind of coincides with IAE because obviously that's when some new ships get released. But one of the fascinating things is IAE or this 315, has 7 ships that have been either straight to flyable or gone on concept sale. So I think it's one's concept and the rest are all flyable. So 6 flyable ships came out for the 315 patch cycle, which is a huge amount. So I thought we've talked a little bit about them on previous shows. Some of the ones we've talked about at length, we'll just kind of go over real quick just to set, just kind of set that up as a ship that was released. But then some of the newer ones, specifically the Raft and the Odyssey, we'll talk a little bit more in depth, and a little bit on the Spartan as well. So first and foremost, we had a ship that people were waiting on, the A2. You can see some examples of the A2 flying, and specifically bomb gameplay. That came out with 315. I know a lot of people have been having fun with that. While I know right now it's been kind of just people having fun with it, there hasn't been much to do with it. I'm really interested to see how this plus Jumptown come together. I have
It's
to
going to be
think
interesting to say the least.
I have to think there's going to be constant bombing runs on Jumptown. Starlet, Ender, your thoughts? A2 bombing.
It's
Any new thoughts on it?
It's insane. I dropped bombs in the PTU, and the first one I dropped, somebody in my stream was like, "You might be too low," and I was like,
Right.
"No way!" And it exploded, and I was like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
It's a huge explosion.
Well,
and they did really well with it.
This is going to give all those Aries something to do. They need to be flying close air support and waiting for A2s to show up and knock them out of the sky.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun.
Starlet, any thoughts on the A2 and bombing before we move on? I know we've covered the A2 and bombing on a previous episode, but any new thoughts on it since it's been out? Or
Nope. I'm looking forward to seeing how bases evolve, how base fortifications evolve, how base anti-air evolves.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get to see some of that as we move into Pyro.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of that in the Pyro video. The next ship that came out, it was a long rumored ship. It released, went straight to flyable, was the Origin 400i. I think this ship has turned out to be kind of a really popular ship beyond what I think a lot of people were expecting. I know some people were even kind of saying some funny things about the 400. It looks funny or this or that or whatever. It's turned out to be a real showstopper, I think, for Origin in general, and it's brought a lot of new, created a lot of new Origin fans, to be totally honest with you. And I think when the 600i gets its rework, it's going to do the same thing. I mean, I was always on the fence with the 400, with Origin in general, but the 400, I'll be honest, it's a nice ship. I do like it. So, Starlets, any new thoughts on the 400i?
I think it's really cute, and I love the mood lighting. Like, it's such a silly thing to like in a space game, which is mainly combat right now. Yep. But it really has a really nice atmosphere to it that would be amazing for roleplay.
Yeah, and I think there's possibly some informing that, on what's going to happen with the eventual 600i internal rework, just in terms of lighting and materials and stuff. Probably based a lot off this ship and probably a little bit of the 890. But I think that points to some good things, because the interior of this ship is really, really nicely laid out, and if they can transfer that same design aesthetic in terms of layout to the 600, I mean, we're in for some good things. So
I think we also finally figured out what it is, and it's not just a ship for shooting; it's a ship for running away from stuff and just moving.
Yeah.
So I think once it was understood what it was, it kind of makes more sense, even though there's not much gameplay for it right now.
Yeah. Ender, any thoughts on the 400i before we move on?
No, nothing new from what we saw and spoke about last time.
Right. So again, trucking on down the 315 ship list, the next big one, probably the longest running, or probably one of the ships that has one of the longest running, group of people, asking when. That was the Aegis Redeemer. Finally now flyable. Changed from its original concept of a dropship into a gunship. I know countless content creators and stuff have covered this ship into exhaustion at this point, so we won't stick on it too long. Ender, I'll hand this one to you first. Any new thoughts on the Redeemer? I know you've been able to fly it a lot more now, but you've really been focused on your Aries. But any new thoughts on the Redeemer?
I've done a lot of focus on the Ares, but the Redeemer is getting my hands on it in the PU. I think it's a really good multi-role ship when you have 3 or 4 people who want to join you and run with you. It's great for a wide array of stuff that I enjoy doing, at least.
Yeah. We
and
cleaned
it's
up
just
we cleaned up those initial cutties in the 890 mission
Yeah.
pretty heartily with this.
we did. They were done.
They
very
stood no
quickly.
chance.
And it was just amazing to see the firepower coming out of this thing. I'd love to see it fully outfitted and fully kitted and fully run and manned real soon.
Yeah. We're not going to spend too much time on a Redeemer, Starlight. I'm just going to keep on moving here. We got 2 bigger ships, I think, that are going to be more interesting to deep dive here. Real quick, next new ship that came out was the Ares series. Both the Ion and Inferno, 2 variants of the same ship, one carrying a ballistic Gatling gun and the other carrying
devastating size
energy.
7 mountable
Is it a
ship
cannon?
ever
Is that what-
devised.
Yeah.
It's the SF-7, being prototyped in both ballistic and
I'll let
laser
everyone speak on this one, although I'll talk a little bit about it first. The Ares was a ship that, as Ender knows, I was focused on pretty early. Actually, about a year ago, I really started eyeballing the Ares, and specifically because in the Arma days, I flew the A10 a lot. And sorry, what was that?
Task at
Could you look-
hand is to
could you,
try and design
mute the video
equally
audio?
sophisticated
Is the
ship to
video
wield.
audio?
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Even
Sorry.
with the-
Thank you for the call out.
Thank you, people.
Thanks, chat. Appreciate it. I forgot we had audio on that one. But the Ares is a ship that I've really been keeping an eye on. I love flying A10s and Arma, so this was a ship that naturally kind of caught my attention. Also, one of the things that really pulled me into the Ares and had me pledge for it, like probably an Invictus or 2 ago, was I was just really impressed with the Mercury Star Runner. I thought CIG had just done a bang-up job with that ship. I loved everything about it, the internals, the externals, the view, the cockpit view, just everything, the attention to detail. And I thought if they translated that into the Ares, it'd be a kick-ass ship. I think they accomplished that. And I think so far, just in general content creator streams, I've seen more people messing around with the Ares than probably anything else. Ender, I'll hand this one back to you again first because I know you've been flying it a lot. Thoughts on the Ares?
It is a wonderful ship. It's great for bounty hunting. It's not OP in the sense that if I go up against another ship, I am just taking it out. There are still some improvements to be made, and I think I would be remiss, if I didn't point out a discussion that is currently being had over on the Spectrum website. Zero State, a really good friend of the show, and of Starjump, posted a not so much a nerf, but some updates and quality of life thoughts about both the Ares, Inferno, and Ion. And I'm posting the link right there. I think it's a really, really good thing to go take a look at it. And to be honest with you, his ideas are pretty spot on. It will make both of these ships a little more intuitive and not so powerful, but at the same time, it won't weaken them to the point of being useless. So there's no real nerf going on. It's just making changes to individualize these 2 ships, and I think it's all really good.
Kind of balanced stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a gorgeous ship. I love this ship.
These were 2 ships too. I think a lot of people expected a lot of balance needing to be brought to them. Starlight, thoughts on the Ares? Have you been checking them out at all?
Yeah, yeah, it's curious. I don't think they should be very effective against other fighters at all. And it's a single player ship. But then again, they're calling it a capital ship killer or a large ship killer. I don't think we all think about ships as in solo play right now, and I don't think that's the future of it. I think if you want to take down a javelin, this will not do it. You'll need 20, and then it's a capital ship killer in a wing with lots of mates. So even though it's a single player fighter, it's actually a multiplayer ship.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And remember too, everyone keep in mind, and he even kind of brought this up a little bit. I think Jared did on the Q&A today. CIG, they'll fully admit it too a lot of times, is that they'll throw around these terms like capital killer and carrot killer and stuff when a new ship is up to be sold. And that's marketing lingo. They're trying to put that ship in the best light possible. I can almost guarantee you when player run Idrises are in game, we have the breakability system, the full working shield system, armor, all that stuff. It's going to take a lot to bring down a capital ship. As a matter of fact, in some ways, bringing down a capital ship is going to be Star Citizen's version of doing a dungeon run. Essentially, it's going to take a concerted effort from a group of players to deal with that. And remember, in the long term, a capital killer, maybe one part of that may be disabling the ship to get it to stop. People don't talk about shipboarding a lot. To really truly do damage to that ship, you probably need to get a boarding party on there as well and start attacking it from the inside. So just remember that capital ship killer and stuff, a little bit of that is marketing speak, but what it doesn't take away is that these two ships are pretty lethal ships. I know with the Inferno, which is the one I own, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it's the best of the two. All I know is it's the funnest of the two for me personally.
I love it.
That cannon just that Gatling just ratcheting away. It ignites a fantasy that a little bit of spaceship fantasy that's just too cool. And again, you'll hear a lot of times especially on people that do ship buying episodes and stuff on YouTube and stream. There's all this advice and what to buy, what not to buy, what is smart buy, what is a bad buy. At the end of the day, though, it is okay to get something that you just think is cool and that you enjoy flying. You know what I mean? If the Prowler, for example, a drop ship like that, if that's just something you like and you want to own it and you want to fly it because you think it's cool, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? So spend your money how you want to spend it. All right, that's the Ares. Let's move on to another, not quite a ship, but a vehicle that went straight to drivable during the IAE, and that is the Spartan, Anvil Spartan. I'll hand this one over. We did talk a little bit about this on our very first IAE episode about a week ago. They had already announced the Spartan, so we did talk a little bit about that, so we're not going to spend much time on the Spartan. Any new thoughts on that, Starlight? Have you spent any time with it?
I didn't think I'd like it. It's got no purpose right now. It's not my kind of gameplay, but I bought one, and it's kind of fun. I don't know why.
At the very least, a safe LTI token, right?
Well, I guess. But I actually had fun driving it around, and I mean, it makes no sense.
I could see it being useful for Jumptown because there's a lot that goes on surface level of Jumptown, so I could see Jumptown 2.0 having a purpose, maybe.
I just had this image where you could like drop down the side doors and use and sort of shoot from inside with some cover after putting up to a base or something, and it kind of had a little bit of a dream narrative to it, which seemed kind of fun.
Ender, Spartan.
I did not buy it, and I can see how it could be fun, but I'm just not going to buy it. I'm just not going to end up with one. I'm not a ground vehicle person unless it's a motorcycle, I think.
Yeah. I did not buy one. I think ground vehicles will be something that are very important to me. I think I have an Ursa and a Tumbril now, or a Cyclone now. I think ground vehicles will be more important to me when we do have, well, obviously ground-based gameplay where you have to have them, for example, where ships can't go, as a way to get where ships can go. But I also think ground vehicles will play a bigger role for me when we can actually have our own outposts and thus store our ground vehicles there and use them to explore from our outposts. I think they'll be, to me, ground vehicles are almost a feature of outposts in a weird way.
I should qualify. I didn't actually buy it as an LTI token. I just buy, because I have some extra credit on my account, I just buy a ship at full price for credit that I can mount it later, because I won't go into game with it. It's not worth it given the current UEC prices.
Yeah, and that's a great thing. It's an easy way to try out ships sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's the Spartan. Next, we're going to go to a ship that we probably can take a little bit of time to talk about here, and that is the Argo Raft. Hopefully, there's no audio coming from this video. Let me know if there is. But the Argo Raft, new cargo ship from Argo, a little bit of a unique one. It's supposed to compete with the Freelancer, but it's kind of a unique one in that its cargo is carried externally, and the standard 32 SCU containers, and you notice I say standard because those are the same containers that are on the cargo decks. They're the same containers that are held by the Hull C and possibly other Hull ships. So I think this ship, first off, from a visual perspective, is one of my favorite. I almost bought it simply because of the way it looks. I love the industrial look. I love all the greebling and superstructure that you can see and just all that stuff. I just thought it was really cool. The interior was amazing. But at the end of the day, I was like, do I need a Hull C, or sorry, do I need a Freelancer style cargo ship right now? I don't. I have ships that can already do that job. I was probably the biggest thing that surprised me about it, though, was the price. I thought they came in at a very reasonable price point for this ship. It really kind of now is kind of one of those premium starter ships in a way, when you consider it sort of sits in that price range of what, like a Cuddy and a Freelancer. Starlet, what's your thoughts there on the
We kind of speculated, right, that it was about loading and unloading Hull Cs, and
right.
there was no reference to anything like that. It was not priced to be something that could do that, and it has a long-range quantum drive and facilities to support a long-range cargo. It really does seem like just a starter cargo ship, and that's all that is planned to be. So I was a bit confused at how little it offered.
I will say this, though. I still think it has one advantage that separates it from currently all other ships. I think it has a setup to offload Hull ships better than, and more importantly, faster than any other ship. The fact that its tractor beam sits right above its grapplers to hold the cargo boxes means that it's going to be able to do it a lot faster than, say, if you pulled up a Freelancer Max and was trying to unload a Hull C from that, where you've got to you use your tractor beam gun to kind of maneuver a box in the cargo bay. This thing is custom set up to offload those ships quickly.
So why wouldn't they include that in their marketing? Because that seems like a big deal to me.
I know. I thought about that myself, and I'm still confused by it. I think honestly, when the Hull C does come out, go ahead and mark this down. I don't know if this is going to happen. We're going to place some bets here. But I personally think when the Hull C comes out in 318, I'm almost positive we're going to get a Hull C commercial, like a MISC commercial that focuses on the Hull C. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you there'll be rafts in that commercial. And there's going to be a moment where we see rafts unloading a Hull C. So while I agree with you, I think they should have pushed it in the initial marketing. I definitely think they're going to start to show some of that interoperability between the two ships. Again, I don't think it's that other ships can't do it. I'm sure the Argo MPUV is going to be able to do it. The SRV will be able to do it. But I think the raft has, primarily based off how the ship is laid out, tractor beam, cargo grapplers, and control room. That's laid out in the perfect way to unload it fast. And as we figured out, Starlet, using a little bit of math, there are 144 32 SCU cargo boxes on the Hull C. There's 144 of them on the spindles. 144 times 32 SCU equals 4,608 SCU, which is the amount the Hull C carries. So with 144, if you divide that by 3, I forget what it is. Someone better with math. Does anyone know? I don't know. But
my math that's
come on in there.
Well, my math is terrible.
Anyways, I think it's somewhere around like 48 or something
48,
like that.
46.
Something like that. Maybe it's something like that. Either way, that gives you an idea of how many trips an Argo raft. Yeah, that gives you an idea of how many trips an Argo raft would have to take to fully unload a fully laden hull C. It's not too bad
4
of
of
a
them,
number.
10 trips.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
5 of them, maybe 10 trips.
So I still think we're going to see them push that. And here's my other prediction. I think that when the hull C goes flight ready, they're going to sell a package that's the hull C and the raft together.
Yeah,
I am wildly speculating, but
I would not bet against that though.
Yeah.
It's a wild speculation, but I wouldn't bet against it.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet against it anyway with Shadow here for 100,000 Alpha UEC. You're on, Shadow. Just for
There it
fun.
is.
it comes with a free, and it will come with a free set of cargo deck overalls for.
I see. I'll take that. I'll take the overalls. My Michael Myers character is being built. So Bourbon has thoughts on the raft as well.
Sure, let's bring him in.
So I'm going to pull him in here. Welcome back, Bourbon.
Hello.
Bourbon?
Hello.
Yeah, I was thinking about the raft then when you were talking about the way that the tractor beam is going to work, and I think that the way that tractor beam is set up on the raft is clues to how the actual cargo refactor is going to be implemented with unloading and loading. The actual mechanics and gameplay of it. I can very much see it becoming almost a sort of mini game, a maybe third person claw kind of game to pick up and move. And I think this is also echoed with the Caterpillar's design, with the way that the actual tractor beam set up on the right side to drag it in sideways. There's going to be maybe possibly a third person. There things will be in a radius. You can click them, and then an animation might play to do it for you. Because if you think about the way that the actual cargo is sat inside vehicles, it's on a grid. And if you were to do it manually, I can see a lot of force reaction issues with loose cargo not being tied down to grids and things like that. I take Farming Simulator as an example of this. I was watching a buddy of mine today playing Farming Simulator 2022, and he was loading a truck full of lettuce crates and pallets, and that was jank as all hell. And I'm thinking about that, including force reactions with the Star Citizen universe at the moment, and I can definitely see them not wanting to give players the full freedom to just manually load SCU boxes as and when you want to, with just some sort of weird camera angle, but more an actual animation that plays out through a mini game.
And to go along with that, they did say, I feel like Joron could correct me on this if I'm saying it. I'm pretty sure I remember CIG saying too that in regards to cargo refactor, when you are manually loading a ship, I think they did say something about there being some type of way where you can snap the cargo into place so that it can be stacked nice and neat, or a la on the hull C, let's say you're loading it, where you can stack it to where it's all nice and neat and locked down on the cargo grid. You know, the artificial gravity locking plates or whatever they are on those spindles. So that coupled with what you're talking about, Bourbon, it could turn into a kind of a cool little mini game, little claw mini game, or tractor beam mini.
Looking back over the video of the raft playing now, and you can see the number 3 crate, the one that's closest to you. You can't actually see that crate from the station that you're in. Even if you go into it and you do the animation, you stand on it, you can power up. You can't see the number 3 crate. So I don't see how they could possibly expect somebody to load and unload manually from that position if you can't even see what you're doing. So
one thing
unless
I
they
was
include an external camera, maybe on hidden cameras we haven't seen on the textures.
One thing I was thinking about that, and I've studied the model and I couldn't come to a definitive answer, but you have your 3 successive cargo boxes. I think the first one you move and manipulate is the furthest one out. You move it, detach it, thing. And then I think the next box, I'm wondering if its claws actually then pull, animate. See, they're on like a rail. I think they move to the back where the previous box was. You can do it, and then the third box moves forward and it detaches and using the tractor beam. I think it's completely unconfirmed. In the model, it looks like there's rails there for those hooks to slide, but I can't. I'm not sure.
They do look like they slide up the rail.
I wondered if the hooks could, only some of them could be used for a larger container size. But I think your idea is probably closer to the truth, thinking about it.
But that's a great point, Bourbon. Absolutely great point.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thank you.
We are going to move on to the next ship. If there is any last things on the Argo Raft, Starlet, Ender?
No, it's a beautiful looking ship, but it's just not my kind of ship.
Yeah.
Same. Yep.
Okay, that's the Argo Raft. Again, I think the number one thing about this ship and it's a very good thing, the number one shocker for me on this was the price tag.
Yeah.
They came in low on it. I think they knew exactly where it was sitting, and I think that was a great thing. This could have been a ship that they had a bit of a premium on, but I love the price point they came in on it, and that was great. Yeah.
It feels like they're spreading the prices. So it feels like starter ships are staying extremely low and large ships are going right up. So so as to get less large ships in the verse, I assume.
Yeah. And here's my thing about that. I actually wouldn't mind if the Mustang and Aurora, the $45 package. I almost wouldn't mind if those were even $30 packages. And mainly to get more people into the game, that initial cost. Because here's the thing about Star Citizen I find when I talk to people who don't play the game yet. Because they've heard about it being in alpha for so long, there's so much bad press out there about it that gets written and stuff from people that don't understand the game. Sometimes they don't even want to risk putting $45 in it. They really don't. They're like, it's $45. I feel like I'm throwing it away. This game's going to be in alpha for 16 more years. I feel like a lower cost of entry even during this alpha phase, or maybe it's a single ship. Maybe it's like a very stripped down Aurora or something at the, whatever that is, the $30 mark or something to get more people in. I'm fine with that if some of those starter ships shift down a little bit on the ladder and some of the bigger ones shift up.
How about just a game package without a ship so that you can go and join your friends' ship?
100%. Ender knows I've been saying that for a long time.
Yep.
There should be like the Citizens package that's like a real cheap cost to entry. Like maybe it's even like $5-10. You get in, all it really is for CIG's benefit, all it is another account created, which technically is for them a good thing. And because when that account's created, they can now send that person promotional material and try to pull them in more. But regardless,
that person will end up buying a ship. You can almost guarantee it.
Almost guarantee it, or at least buy it in game.
In their defense, they do have a lot of free flies. So if someone really was interested, they can look for free.
That's very true. That's very true. And I'm not saying it's something that CIG is doing that's bad or man, they really missed the boat on that. I'm just saying it could be an interesting thing when Star Citizen in the future, server meshing's out, servers can handle a lot more players, the game's much more playable, there's a lot more gameplay loops. If they are looking for more ways to pull in players, there's still a lot of avenues for them.
They just need some missions that you can run at a landing site without a ship to get that first Aurora ES with Alpha UEC.
Right. Okay, we're going to move on to our last ship discussion here, and that is on the big one that was announced, the one that I think it leaked out a little bit beforehand, but it was the one that really kind of took a lot of people by surprise, and that was the Misk Odyssey. I'm going to go ahead and play the recent Inside Star System they just released that shows a lot of the concept art and some of the rough and concept white box internals. So Misk Odyssey, it is a large, almost capital. Sometimes they refer to it as capital. There's been a little mixed terms there. Explorer ship that has mining and refining capability. But at its heart, it is an explorer ship by Misk. They had said on this ISC that I think it had been 5 years since they had done a Misk ship, which I hadn't realized, which I thought was rather interesting. There's a kind of a big point of contention right now with this ship versus the Carrack. I think a lot of that was in terms of marketing lingo and how it was sold, and a little bit of the features. But before we go into all that, let's just talk high level. First impressions of the Odyssey. Ender, why don't you go ahead first? First impressions of the Odyssey.
It was far larger than I expected it to be. I don't know why, but in my head, I was expecting this to be kind of a size in between the Freelancer and what the Odyssey ended up being.
Somewhere in that, maybe like an 80-meter ship or 90-meter ship,
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
yeah. But man, pleasantly surprised to see that this is a much larger ship, and it has a much more robust and, in my opinion, thought out a plan for what they want it to be.
Yeah.
And it's really well done. I'm really excited. I'll be honest with you, it's going to be hard to give this thing away next week, but I guess I'll do it this time.
Yeah. And whoever wins that, they're getting some nice loaners too. You get a
are.
Carrack and a
Yeah, I've
Reliant.
got a Carrack and a Reliant currently sitting in my hangar. I blew up my Reliant on accident.
And I'd just like to give a personal thanks to the person who donated that, who wants to remain anonymous. But
yes,
100%.
Huge thanks.
Thank you so much.
Very, very generous. Thank you.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I've thanked them no less than 50 times in the last week and a half.
And we'll be giving out some more information here momentarily and definitely at the end on how you can get in on that contest. Real quick though, Starlet, Odyssey, first impressions.
Yeah, no yet. For me, it depends on will there be enough space across these 100 systems to actually warrant scooping, collecting, refining your own fuel as you go, or will it, or is the universe small enough that a full tank Carrack can get anywhere anyway?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, they kind of made that interesting comment on the Q&A today, where they kind of said that Star Citizen is getting bigger. The space, our play space is getting bigger, which I thought was interesting for them to say. I mean, they've already kind of confirmed Pyro's plan for next year with server meshing, probably end of year. Pyro's a much bigger system than Stanton. We know that in terms of just raw distance. And there's other star systems within Star Citizen that are being planned that are much bigger than Stanton, much, much bigger than Stanton. And they said that fuel is going to be an issue.
Again, it's like saying something's expensive. Expensive for an Aurora pilot or expensive for an Idris pilot. So will an Idris be able to go pretty much anywhere with its giant capital-sized fuel tanks? I don't know. I'm curious about it.
Yeah. Or I thought about the same thing, but in relation to the the Kraken. The Kraken has those 4 absolutely massive fuel tanks that it uses to refuel ships on its decks.
Right.
I'm like, man, if you fully fuel the Kraken and fully fuel those 4 tanks, I'm hoping I can go just about anywhere with that thing. You know what I mean?
And note the Privateer doesn't have those anymore.
It doesn't have those, right? Those get turned into shops. So heads up to Privateer owners.
Well, we don't know. It might not be needed. That fuel tank might never get any use.
Yeah, the Kraken actually is technically described as an ultra long range ship. I've heard it called that by CG. Regardless, though, my thoughts on it are: I love exploration ships. That the very first ship I pledged for in Star Citizen was the Freelancer Dur. That wasn't a starter package. It was the Freelancer Dur because I love the idea of an exploration focused ship. The Carrack was an awesome ship to have. I love it. Everyone knows I love it. I fly it around just for fun times. Even now, I think it's a really cool looking ship. I actually do like the new design of the Carrack versus the old one. Even I like that it looks heavier, sits heavier, and all that stuff. But one of the big bits of conversation is Carrack versus Odyssey, and I think one of the primary reasons it's a big point of contention right now is because the Carrack was sold as CIG used the term in-game exploration ship. They didn't say the best though. They said in-game level exploration ship, and now they're calling the Odyssey. I forget the exact wording, and I would like to say the exact wording, but essentially they try to say that the Odyssey is the best ship for exploration. But we're going to get into that in a minute.
Until the next one comes out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So real quick here, I'm going to flip over to some new visuals. as you know, we're working on the Fleet Viewer project. So once the Odyssey came out, I took the Odyssey and started prepping it for Fleet View. So we'll show that now. Here is the Odyssey you'll be able to spawn in our Fleet Viewer project. Looks pretty good. I think that's going to be sort of your base skin right there. Now, another thing they sold with this ship, like they do when they do new concepts, they did it with the Perseus and other ships, was they sold a concierge skin. They also did this for the Scorpius. They released the Stinger paint for concierge. They did that for the Odyssey, and they released this skin here, which is the Windrider skin, which I absolutely love. I would love for the Carrack to get this attention to it. I feel like the Carrack's Expedition paint feels a little slapped on, but I love the Windrider paint scheme they came up with. So that was an easy snag for me on the old CCU, the old buyback list. What else do we have? So these are 2 new visuals. I thought they were pretty cool. Again, you'll be able to get those in Fleet View. Let's talk a little bit about, let's focus our conversation a little bit here on the Carrack versus Odyssey discussion. I'll go ahead and point or put out there my thoughts on this, in that there's room for both of these ships. And there are some significant differences with these ships that are known at the moment with the information we have. And that could all change as the Odyssey does go through development. But there's plus and minuses on both sides. Yes, the Odyssey has the onboard refinery. Yes, it can essentially make its own quantum fuel and stay out for as long as it needs to. On the other hand, the Carrack is supposed to have long distance probes and supposed to have jump gate mapping. So it's possible the Carrack won't need as much fuel as the Odyssey, because it's going to be able to find jump point shortcuts that allow it to get to locations and really save on fuel. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, because what we heard on that last Inside Star Citizen, where they talked about jump points in depth, we heard that there was going to be shortcuts and ways to side and little back alleys and stuff on some of those jump points. And that Carrack, that's going to be one of its specialties. So maybe one of its ways of saving on fuel is taking those shortcuts and using those antenna it has to stabilize a jump point, transversal through a jump point that is a little bit more of a shadier back alley jump point. It's going to be able to take those shortcuts because it has the ability to stabilize and navigate those jump points better with those antennas that pop out. That's what they're for. So I'll hand it over to you first, Starlet. Thoughts about the Odyssey versus the Carrack specifically?
Yeah, I think the word exploration hasn't been defined. I think this should be called roaming. I think jump point mapping should be under science or something.
That's a good point.
I think this is a ship that you don't have to come home ever unless you want to, really. It's for people who want to go out into asteroid belts or things and just hang out there for ages and sort of loiter around and do whatever you're going to do out there. Who want to avoid busyness or people or pirates or whatever's going on in the more populated areas.
Yeah. Real quick, I'm going to jump to some questions that popped up in chat. Bourbon, I know you're in backstage. This question might be your backstage question. I don't know. Bourbon says, in terms of gameplay around ship-to-ship refueling, do you think they will put in AI starfarers going around common locations that are out of the way stations? Possibly. I think that's maybe a future thing, but possibly. And then Sorek had a question here. So ships outside of the Carrack, how do you suspect ships will handle jump points? I think all ships will be able to handle jump points, but they did say that with jump point transversal, that if you are to kind of fall out of the tunnel, because you have to kind of navigate that. There's like a flow that goes through it, and you have to kind of navigate that. If you fall out, you could get abandoned pretty much in deep space with not enough fuel to get home. That's a problem. You could also severely damage your ship falling out of the tunnel. So that's another thing. So I think all ships are going to be able to navigate them. I think the Carrack, though, is going to have the ability to stabilize that transversal a little better and make it a little bit easier than other ships. I think the Carrack may also have the ability to go through slightly smaller jump points than other large ships, because it can stabilize itself a little bit more. speculating, but they've kind of hinted on that a little bit.
I do want to speak to that a little bit as well, because some of you guys may know Rovax. He jumps into the conversation every once in a while in the Discord. He and I were talking a little bit, and he was asking me my thoughts on the Odyssey. And he was talking about the Carrack because I kept saying that it bothered me that people are saying this is replacing the Carrack because it's not. And he had an insight that I thought was really, really interesting. So he had a dinner, and he showed his signed little ticket. He had a dinner with Chris Roberts once, and after a couple of hours of talking to him, he said that Chris said exploration is by far the biggest thing the community has said it wants through polls, and to keep exploration fresh and valuable, jump points will be ever changing. So what you could get a javelin through at some point, the next time maybe not even a hammerhead is going to fit, and then after that maybe an Ares, and they're going to actually disappear. So the Carrack's usefulness is still going to be there because it is still going to be able to scan those jump points
and find them again, essentially.
Exactly. So you're going to constantly have ever changing jump points. So I think maybe the Carrack will be able to go through a smaller jump point, but I do think that the full purpose of that is because the Carrack would be useless if jump points were stable and consistent. But if it has to locate those, and now your Carrack is there to make money through finding these jump points and selling that data to people in the future.
And that's a good point.
Yeah,
it's always annoyed me that they don't tell you which ships will fit. Like they've got these jump gate sizes on their arc map, and it really annoys me that they don't tell you what ships can go where, or at least they haven't updated that information for such a long time that it's no longer valid. Probably, like we're paying real money for ships. We should know where they can go. And
perhaps the reason that they're not doing
maybe
that
that's why.
because,
But
yeah, I mean,
now you know a jump point in Stanton that goes to Pyro may disappear, but another one's going to pop up. It's just a matter of locating that one and knowing where it's at. I think
although
that's
they do
really
have
interesting.
on the arc map some fixed sizes, so,
Right? That's true.
Yeah, let's see.
The funny thing is, though, is that when you describe what you just described, Ender, I immediately just got excited for the Carrack again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't take much to twist you in the direction of another ship. So,
what if they create a refinery module that goes in the Carrack at the bottom, one of those three containers? You know, so you put a rock in the front, you got a refinery in the then suddenly you've got an anvil Odyssey.
Yeah,
and I want to talk a little bit about the modules on the Carrack and how they could relate to the Odyssey. I mean, again, it goes back into the whole thing, and maybe a Carrack needs to fly with the Odyssey to find those jump points, so the Odyssey can then push forward. You know. So real quick, let's bring Bourbon in. I think you had another question, Ender. Can we bring him in?
We did. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we're gonna once he's in, we're gonna talk about Carrack modules after that. Bourbon, what's on your mind?
Hi, I was just I brought this question up before, and I saw that Starlight had answered it in the chat, but I was interested in Ender and Graham, your opinion. I'm just looking at the video today from ISC about the Odyssey and about the size of the hangar. We know it's an extra small. It's going to take those kind of ships, but I'm looking at the verticality of it and the amount of volume of space it takes up. I'm seeing it's going through 3 whole decks of the ship. And I'm wondering what your guys' opinions are on why they've decided to take that up, because we know the Carrack has a similar sized hangar, maybe it's a little bit smaller. I don't know the actual size of it compared to two of them, but it only takes up that one deck and it's straight to the top. This one goes all the way down to the bottom, on line with the bottom cargo bay where the vehicles can sit. I wonder if you think it's intentional design for what Starlight suggested might be taller ships that are coming in the future, or if it's just a flare design, or maybe a mismanaged design of wasted volume.
Or higher storage of cargo as well to get that box count in there.
I think the Odyssey is the way they would prefer to do ship hangars, primarily because the Carrack, and they actually said this in a video before the Carrack was released, when they were, I think it's actually the video where they unveil the C8, the Pisces, the video where they unveil that. The specific thing about the Carrack and its hanger is that the hanger is for the Pisces. It's not technically for any other ship. Yes, you can get ships in there, but the Carrack and the Pisces are together. Like the Pisces is the snubcraft for the Carrack, much like the Merlin fits in the constellation. I think that's the only reason why the Carrack's hanger literally just fits the Pisces, because it didn't need any more space. I think going forward, any ship that has a hanger where it's not carrying a snubcraft built specifically for it, it'll have this Odyssey style hanger. I also think this hanger in the Odyssey is the exact hanger that we're going to get in the Polaris in terms of dimensions, 100%. Yeah, I think that's the reason. I think it gives you more flexibility, and on ships like there may be other ships too, that we don't know about yet, that maybe their wings fold up a little bit or whatever, and you need that little bit of extra height clearance. So I think that's definitely a possibility. So
could you stack little ships with grav leave or something? Could there be some sort of future functionality there to get more in that hangar?
Yeah, I think
seems like a dangerous trip, but yeah.
It does, but at the same time, I'll be honest, with the tech that they've already shown, coming out of the bottom of the ship, I think it's entirely possible that you would be able to fit two ships with grav lev. And maybe it's going to be less stable and less safe, but you'll be able to carry a little bit more.
What we don't know is if the hanger floor comes up. We know in the Polaris, the hanger opens and the floor is supposed to raise. There's supposed to be like an elevator there. Doesn't the 890 do that?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't the 890 have an elevator?
Yeah, it does.
So the Polaris is supposed to do the same thing.
I
don't know if the Odyssey has that or not. Maybe someone can help. Real quick too, I saw we had
Kelly asked a pretty good question here.
Yeah. You want to read off that question in there? I'm blind, apparently.
There,
I was lost.
Hilo was originally noted as an exploration. Where will its scanner fall in comparison with the Terrapin, Carrack, Odyssey, and Endeavor? That's tough. I think that's really dependent on what they expect for the Aquila. Because while it was originally noted as an exploration, I haven't seen a lot of.
We don't know what the scanners are yet.
Yeah, we're just not sure.
What exploration means.
We don't know what it means.
As a game.
Yeah. I mean, for me, this is a little bit off topic. Oh, sorry. There was a question by CZ2. Here it is. What do you think is the significance of the Carrack having two large sensors over the Odyssey's one? What we were talking about before, CZ. I think it's, and actually more what Ender was talking about. I think the Carrack is going to be the finder of jump points, and I think those sensors are going to be key. We also know that Carrack is able to deploy those long distance probes for long distance scanning, and I think it needs those extra scanner to be able to dedicate to long distance probe information retrieving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I'm speculating.
We don't actually know which ships have long distance probe support.
Yep. Right. I mean, one thing, again, going back to the using ships together, what I really see the Odyssey being a great ship for is if you've decided that, hey, I want to go set up a mining outpost on, the ass end of nowhere in some far off system, to me, the ship you send out is the Odyssey. Okay. It gets there, it surveys planets that it enters in the system, tries to find interesting landing zone, maybe sends out the ship that's in its hangar to go do some surface level flying around and exploring. Once that ship has found some interesting areas with its limited scanners, it flies back up to mothership and says, hey, Odyssey, we need to go down to this location. I've set a beacon out or whatever. The Odyssey flies down there. The Odyssey, using its mining and arm, can do some probing around on find a location with really good deposits of minerals or whatever the case may be. And then you say, this is where we're going to build our outpost, right?
Yeah.
And then after you've found that location, that's when you call in and say, okay, bring in the Pioneer. Okay. Because a Pioneer, for example, is not a ship you're flying through the atmosphere looking for a good landing space. Yeah, that ship is probably not going to be fuel efficient at all. And so you're going to need that plot of land already plotted out. Another thing, I was talking with the info runners, specifically Execute and a bunch of people from his community just earlier today. Take a ship like the Pioneer. The Pioneer is 200 meters long, and I forget how many meters wide, something like 60 meters wide or maybe 100 meters wide or something. Do you know how hard it is to find 200 meters of flat terrain on a planet even now? Not only that, but the Pioneer swings that one arm out 90 degrees to the port side, so that it ends up becoming 200 meters wide. And this, the whole. So where I'm going with that is, I could see a need for a ship like the Odyssey to find a location where the Pioneer can go. Right.
You'll probably need to terraform before the Pioneer starts, right?
If we can do that,
flatten the land or something along those lines with that base building tool.
Cool gameplay loop.
Yeah, and that's exactly what people in the Inforunners community had brought up, was like that terraforming gameplay. I would love to know more about it. We did get that one brief hint in that one Inside Star Citizen where they said, "Oh, look at us deforming terrain. The players might be able to do this." So
looking forward to the Argo Dozer.
Yeah.
Someone had mentioned too to me, and I thought it was funny because I made that wallpaper for CitizenCon, that you just really need to send in a bunch of A2s dropping bombs ahead of you to flatten the terrain out. But
this has the opposite effect.
Yeah, but this is actually something I have thought about with big ships. I thought, as a Kraken owner, I think about it with the Kraken a lot of times. Yes, the Kraken can land. It's got 12 VTOLs. But it's not going to be easy to find 270 meters of flat terrain to land a Kraken. So so those big ships aren't going to be able to just land anywhere. And that's where I see a ship like the Odyssey, and even a smaller, I could see a ship smaller than the Odyssey getting some of the Odyssey's abilities. But I could see a ship like the Odyssey being that ship you send out to find where to send those other even bigger ships, right?
Yeah.
It does have the scanner on the bottom, right? That's kind of unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. That is unusual. It is unusual. Let's see here. His Divine Shadow says the weight of the Kraken will make it flat. I'll go ahead and clear this up. The Kraken appearing anywhere, gravity runs away. So it's scared. So right away, that's not going to be a problem. And when you see the Kraken emerging through your volumetric cloud deck on a planet, you're good. There's nothing to worry about. Time has stopped.
By that logic, a Javelin can land. So I'm all for it.
The Kraken is the Chuck Norris of Star Citizen ships.
But see, Starlet, the Javelin doesn't land on planets. Planets come to it, right? That's
right. Of course.
Or as CZ says, the Javelin can land, but just once. That's the problem with its landing right now. But so one thing I wanted to go into, we're still talking about this, the whole exploration gameplay, is another thing to not forget about with the Carrack is the modules. And those modules can take many forms. We know those drop pods are going to be able to do different things, and they haven't been totally clear about that, but I thought it was extremely interesting during the Q&A today that was brought up, because it wasn't a primary question to be asked, but one of the devs brought up the fact that the Carrack has those modules, and that could really make the Carrack really interesting. I built a real quick animation just to show an example of what those modules can do, and I'm totally speculating here with this, but I'm able to remove the modules because the modules are there with their doors, and I will caveat here, I have the doors probably hinged the wrong way, but we do know the doors open on the side. But this can give you a slight illustration of different things those modules could do. You know what I mean? Those modules could be dropped off open up and you could drive 3 Spartans out of them like you see here. Those modules could
That's so
be
cool.
life support habs.
That is
Those
cool.
modules could be med bays that are dropped off on the front line for people doing major ground assaults or something, right? So the Carix modules have a lot of really interesting possibilities for it. All those modules too, where the doors are at, they're double doors, so they can seal off and pressurize. Someone did bring up to me that this specific example I'm illustrating here, those Spartans would probably hit the catwalks that are in there. That is true, but you never know. If we were using a specialized module that was a
Right,
vehicle
right,
carry module, they may remove those catwalks.
Yep.
So
right.
but that's the same with a lot of ships, right? The Caterpillar. There could be exploration modules for the Caterpillar. We don't know. Maybe one of those. Imagine if you set up a Caterpillar where one of the modules is a huge fuel tank, one of them is an exploration scanner suite, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can turn the Carrack into a mini exploration ship. Modules will be key to further individualizing ships and making their true potential shine, in my opinion, and that is key to the Carrack's one of the Carrack's like arrows in its quiver still against the Odyssey. Another one would be the Odyssey, or sorry, the Carrack's repair bay. We know that it's got that maintenance room with a 3D printer. We know it's got drone gameplay. Did they confirm drones for the Odyssey?
I don't remember hearing
think so.
anything about it.
Yeah. Here, by the way, you can get an illustration. These are using our Fleet Viewer models. You can see the Carrack sitting next to the Odyssey. Get a little bit of a sense of their scale in relation to one another, by the way.
Now, I do want to point out, Captain Shack has asked I think it's an important question.
Okay.
How many Carrack mods can fit into the Odyssey hangar? What do you think, Graham?
That's a great question. Probably, believe it or not, I think you could probably fit all 3 of those Carrack containers in the hangar, if I remember correctly. I didn't do that test specifically, but I kind of played around with it. I think you could fit them all in there. Yeah.
Be interesting to see. I don't see anybody. Well, I'd underestimate the
Right.
community if I thought they weren't going to try something like that.
But what I think you're going to see, especially if it's a module, let's say it's a module that is crew quarters module, right, to hold more crew members. Let's just speculate here for a minute. I don't think that module will have power to it, so lights and all the stuff and life support, unless it's plugged into the Carrack using its systems, or if you drop it off onto the ground, it's probably going to need to be hooked up to like a ground-based generator, because we know with the outpost stuff they're creating, they showed us a bunch of the parts and pieces they're working on, and power generators are one of the modules for
Why could
outposts.
a ship module not have its own ship power plant component?
It could. It definitely could. I'm just saying that maybe that's one of the ways, to limit it from specifically just being, I'm just going to throw this module in the hangar bay of the Odyssey. I don't know. But we do know power relays, power, management is going to be a thing. So,
I don't like its form factor. Like if that's the Endeavour cab with the huge sort of capital ship workshop attached to it, then that would be like quite an attractive looking ship. But right now it's like just
someone
up somehow.
Yeah, someone in another channel had asked me to quickly mock up. They were curious if you took the Endeavour, which is currently at 200 meters, which we know is completely wrong. They asked me to take the Endeavour and scale it up to where the Endeavour's Explorer cab, that front ship, matched the size of the Odyssey, which I don't think is how the scaling of the Endeavour is going to work. By the way, I do not think that's the case. But they asked if I did that, how big would the Endeavour be? I did that test, and it created the full Endeavour. It ended up being 335 meters long, which is still in the realm of possibilities and doesn't go past the Javelin's 480, which I'm sticking with is going to be the largest player ownable ship. So going that route, again, the Odyssey could be what the Endeavour cab is going to be. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think, though, that the Endeavor's Explorer cab is going to be more around half the Odyssey size.
Will they
Because
fit 500 STO in there though? It's twice the cargo of the Odyssey.
yeah, but the Explorer cab on the Endeavor doesn't need to have a hangar. It doesn't need to have a ramp with the vehicle. At least it's not currently spec'd. It doesn't need to have a refinery on board, and it doesn't have to have what is it? A jump drive? It doesn't have a jump drive on board. So there's stuff it
True.
doesn't need either, and that could probably be the trade-off.
Okay.
Yeah. So real quick before we head off for the night. There was one last thing I wanted to talk about with the Endeavor, and it kind of completes the circle here with IAE and Jax. And we talked about this at the beginning of the show.
You mean the Odyssey?
Sorry, the Odyssey. Thank you. And there was a really cool narrative of Jax throughout the entire IAE. In the last video in particular, which I'll play it here muted, at least the part that's concerning what I'm talking about, they showed Jax get a hold of the Odyssey prototype, and at the end here, he rockets off towards a jump point. It's very clear they're insinuating Pyro there. We know Pyro's in development. And one really other interesting point, another interesting point about the Odyssey is that unlike the Liberator, the Spartan, the Raft, all the other ships that typically go through concept phase, when a ship is revealed, it's usually its concept phase is over. So when they reveal that on the roadmap, you can see, oh, okay, for the past 4 months they were working on this concept ship they just revealed. Well, the interesting thing about the Odyssey is it's been in concept since April of this year, which is quite a long time. And its concepting is still going until May of next year. Now, it is only concept team and narrative team. But I think it's really interesting that when you'll see it in the video right there, we see the Odyssey rocket towards another system and the story to be continued. The Odyssey's still in concept development. I personally feel that means the Odyssey may be going, after it leaves its concept phase, may be going into development, like active production. I'm going to hand it over to you, Starlet, first. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's odd that the Odyssey is still in concept development for another 6 months after its reveal?
I mean, it would make sense that it comes out with Pyro, but then again, I've got the Liberator for that. So, I don't know. I guess it depends on which teams do MISC and what else they're busy with, and if they can get a ship that size done before Pyro comes out.
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking? Exactly.
Kind of, or if not by the time Pyro comes out, then soon after, because this video is interesting, and you see the Odyssey rocket past a Carrack, actually, which is kind of funny. If you catch it in the video, there's a brief Carrack that gets passed by. But regardless, you see this Odyssey going to the jump point, obviously going to probably Pyro, and they very specifically say we will see Jax again, probably next IE. Could they be fast tracking the Odyssey for full on development so that it's?
Well, I mean, the next IE could just have Jax and Pyro mucking around with this Odyssey. It doesn't mean it has to be released by that time.
Totally could be. Ender, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I spoke about this with you yesterday and kind of mentioned it, and you mentioned that you were really on the same wavelength with this. I personally think that when they do announce Pyro, it's going to be with a Jax McCleary video, and it's going to be him and Pyro. I think that we could see the Odyssey come out with Pyro. I could be absolutely off, but I do feel like it's possible that we could see this with Pyro.
It'd have to be a major focus of the ship teams because they got a lot to get through by probably this time next year is when Pyro's coming. So it's a tall order because it's a big ship, but it kind of would fit with the timetables they've laid out. At least I think.
Yeah, I think it could.
I just thought it was interesting. Again, I keep pretty sharp eye on the ship schedules and the ship part of the roadmap, and I had just never seen a ship get revealed, but then stay in concepting, especially for 6 months. And I know some people were like, "Oh, but it's just the narrative team." It's like, yeah, but that could also mean they're working on a commercial for it, which usually happens way in advance too. We don't know what that means. Um, I'm sure when they're doing the commercials for those ships that eventually go flight ready, a lot of times they probably start. I mean, me knowing film production stuff, I'm sure they start a year ahead of time. I'm absolutely sure because they got to do audio, sound mixing, voice talent records, compositing, editing, music selection, and scoring. I mean, there's a whole process there. So again, I just thought it was really interesting about um, that it was staying in concepting for that amount of time. So again, that's we're just pure speculating. But so Ender says here, people are asking about merch. Yeah, we need to get the Starjump merch going again. It has been something I've been working on in the background. For those of you that have been with us for a long time, we had a merch store for a while. It was okay. I was actually not very happy with some of the quality that was coming out, to be totally honest with you. And the last thing I wanted to do was do giveaways with our merch or have people purchase it and be disappointed with the quality. That type of stuff rubs me the wrong way. And when I was talking to Ender about this, I said, look, I'm shutting the store down until we can get really good quality merch. So that is something I'm looking into. Jordan, if you're listening, that's actually something I want to talk to you about as well. Sometime soon. I know you guys have some pretty high quality merch, and I wanted to look into to your sources, but I've been looking into some others, and I have some pretty cool plans for Starjump merch. I can tell you that. Some stuff that's a little bit unique that leverages some of the things we're good at. That's all I'll say. But soon, that's definitely coming soon. Before we wrap it up, Ender, I'm going to hand it over to you real quick. Do you want to talk about charity stuff here real quick?
Absolutely. I'll talk about a few things. I will re-put up the Twitter, all of the Twitters, as soon as I locate them.
Oh, real quick, Ender, you mind if I interrupt one last thing? For those of you that really like seeing the Odyssey rotation animations and really got a kick out of that, I'm going to post those in our Discord. It's another great reason to join our Discord community if you want to see some of our high-res stuff and some of those assets and stuff outside of this video. I post a lot of that stuff there, so I will be posting the Odyssey orbits there. If you want to grab them, if you're a big Odyssey fan. Ender, sorry, back over to you, my friend.
No, all good. So Discord, I just linked the Discord. No, Bourbon linked it first because I'm slow. Jeez. So there is our Starjump Twitter that I know Grim uses quite a bit.
Yes.
I also created a Twitter for myself. Please head over there and follow it. I'd love to be able to kind of connect with the community. And then our Guardians Twitter that is still a little bit under construction is there. So what Starjump Guardians is, guys, is even before Starjump was created, I was working with, at the beginning, Grim, and then Grim unfortunately got exceedingly busy with work. But we were doing charity events. I've been doing that for 4 years. Has it been 4 years?
Probably
I think it's been
even
4
longer,
years.
honestly.
Wow. I've been doing that for quite a while. It took a little while before I felt comfortable bringing it over to the Starjump entity and kind of latching onto that a little bit. But give me help on you. So I am currently doing a Movember charity event. We are doing a giveaway for a Misk Odyssey. It's a raffle. So the way to enter is to go over to my Twitch, which is there, and you'll see a purple box in the About section underneath the main screen that has a mustache in it, and it'll have a donate button at the bottom. Click that donate button and donate $25 to get one ticket. You can have up to 10 tickets. The giveaway will be happening on December 11th at 7 p.m. But unfortunately, I made the decision to raffle off my head being shaved if we hit
What an
$1,000,
idiot.
and I underestimated the community quite a bit. So at 6:30, Eastern Standard Time, I will be shaving my head. Now, my wife also made a small mistake, and she said that at $5,000,
All body
I
hair's
would
going.
be shaving my beard as well.
Hmm.
Our current goal is $1,500. Look, my initial goal, honestly, was $100. And we hit that within 2 minutes of my first stream. So I obviously underestimated everything there.
I want
We
to see
are
the beard
giving.
gone.
Do
So
not.
let's make it happen,
But
people. I
let's
want to
do
see
it.
him shaved like a newborn baby.
I will look like a naked mole rat.
What's the goal for a full wax?
Full wax
And it has to be with
is
wax.
10K. Yeah, 10K,
Yeah.
and we are only using one wax strip, so it's
Yes.
going to be one large pull. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But it's for a great cause. For anybody who doesn't know what Movember is, it is for men's mental and physical health and well-being, with a focus on suicide prevention and awareness for males, and prostate and testicular cancer. So for the month of November, guys, I know it's over now, but I did skip a week or two in everything, so I decided to extend it out. And just check your balls, get yourself checked out. If anything suddenly changes, as someone who has had bladder cancer, because I didn't get a second opinion and figured things were normal that shouldn't have been. I found out I had bladder cancer. I'm luckily cancer free now, but I'm a big proponent of, if there is something different, whether you're male or female, that's not in the norm for you, go get it checked out, for God's sake.
Absolutely.
Take care of your health. This is for November. After this, we do go back to St. Jude, and then I have an area in our Discord, which is here. One more time.
Yeah, join our Discord. Talk to us over there. We're over there all the time.
That is for suggestions for charities. I'm always happy to raise money for a charity, and as you can see, I am willing to get rid of hair and do a lot of stuff that and for anybody that hasn't seen me before, I will just show. I'm not balding. This is not me.
Whew.
Just doing what I normally do.
Wow.
Wolverine. Oh my god.
Oh man. Old Milwaukee over here. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's a lot of hair that's going to get shaved off. So
a lot of people don't know that
cause.
I am completely shaved bald. I have hair, but I shave my head pretty religiously now because it is so great not worrying about it. I don't wear hats because I'm ashamed. I wear hats because I love hats, and I loved having my head shaved. So I will go ahead and say I'm DG360 in it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I will go ahead and say I want to see Ender join the Bald Club. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it.
I need to get DG on board for the Bald Club, watching me join.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe I'll record it and send it to him.
Cool.
But yeah, it's for a great cause, guys. It's always open. I don't have to be there, but I will send any experience that is necessary. $25 to get one ticket, and a Misc Odyssey is on the line.
Win the Misc Odyssey. I'll throw the full screen one up here so everyone can see it nice in all its glory. Don't miss out on that. That is a really cool giveaway. You know, it's not too often that ships of this size and caliber are given away. And again, another big thank you for our anonymous donor that put this up. I mean, what an amazing thing to do to raise money. Absolutely incredible. I mean, this is essentially a giveaway on par with like a Polaris giveaway or something. So
and I'll be honest, this person has been as excited as I have been
Yeah.
this whole time. It's amazing to see the excitement.
Yeah, so just really, really cool. Ender, does that wrap up charity stuff, my friend?
That wraps it up.
Okay. Starlet, over to you real quick. Do you have any last things before we cut out for the night?
It's been so much fun hanging out with everyone. Thanks everyone in chat. You're awesome, and there were some really nice questions, and
Yes.
that kept the show moving along. Thank you.
Yeah,
all.
the I thought the backstage thing worked pretty good, so I think we're going to
Yeah.
keep
It
that
did.
going.
It
If you all enjoy it and don't feel like it detracts too much, we're going to keep it. I thought it went off without a hitch. Thank you, Ender, for help managing that.
Absolutely.
We'll be back next Friday for another episode of Starjump Station. We'll announce what the subject matter will be coming up soon. I can go ahead and tell you, I am currently planning and working on a very big deep dive episode on the Crusader Starliner. And we're going to do visuals much like we did with the Endeavor. We're going to show stuff that no one has ever seen before. And I'm actually, for those of you that have heard of Sir Berticus, who's done some really amazing YouTube videos on the Starliner, kind of theory crafting what it should and could be. I am working with him and collaborating with him to bring his schematics and his vision of the Starliner into 3D. So I don't know when that is going to happen, but I can tell you that's going to be really cool and be a really special episode. I did already have someone Ender lined up to raid for this evening. If that's all right.
Are they streaming?
Absolutely. Who we raiding?
They're streaming. We are going to be raiding a really sweet person, good friend. Both her and her husband are really great people.
This is who
She's
I was going to suggest.
totally awesome, and I've always liked her community. They're a very positive community. Just good vibes all the time in there, which is what we try to do at Starjump. So I just really appreciate them. So we're going to raid Hangry Sarah. When you get over there, please tell her that, give her some of that Starjump love. And yeah, that's about it. Again, stay tuned. We'll be doing just another regular episode next week. Get back on our regular time here. I know we kind of got off track with IAE, but we're going to get back to our Friday night shows. So yeah, appreciate it, everyone. We are rating her now.